American national anthem performed by six-time Grammy Award winner Mark Anthony to kickstart the Miami Grand Prix, the sixth round of the Formula One calendar this year. Let's check back in with Rosanna Tennant, who's found team principal of Red Bull, Christian Horner.
Christian, you've got Max exactly where you need him today. Can he hold the Ferraris off? Do you think about the race?
Well, that's what we're going to try and do. The Ferraris are going to be fast, but look, you're in great grid positions, but it's a tricky overtake at, and strategy, tyres, all the usual things are going to come into play here.
A lot of people were struggling, even Max yesterday, with trying to find consistency, but in race trim, does that not really make much of a difference?
Well, it's all relative. I think everybody was struggling with the conditions, and it's a tricky circuit, so I expected it to be the same today.
And just a word on the atmosphere here, that national anthem, everyone was roused by that. How are you feeling? You pumped up for this Miami Grand Prix?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a great atmosphere here. I mean, Miami's got bigger and better every year, so let's hope we can have a good one.
Good luck.
Thanks, Rosanna. The two Red Bulls, Max Verstappen on pole position and Sergio Perez starting down in fourth with the two Ferraris sandwiched in between. Norris, Piastri, the top six. It's George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, the two Mercedes in seventh and eighth, Julian. They brought some upgrades this weekend. They've shown real glimpses of speed, but it's a bit up and down. They're lacking consistency, it seems.
They are also lacking pace. I think they've shown a glimpse of speed at one point. Lewis Hamilton did a good lap yesterday, but by and large, seventh and eighth is as good as it's been for them. Neither of them scored points in the shortened sprint race yesterday. They'll be hoping that the race will be kinder to them. They were both in traffic yesterday, Russell and Hamilton, and they'll be hoping that they can run with those ahead. But they've got to sort the car out, and the upgrades that they bought don't seem to have been any sort of solution towards that yet. No,
still a lot of work to do for the Silver Arrows. In terms of strategy, then, we mentioned tyres and how that is proving to be the tricky subject this afternoon across the weekend. What are we expecting from the pit strategy?
It's looking like a one-stop race, 57 laps. The 19-lap sprint yesterday was able to be done on the soft tyre, the least durable. So we're expecting a pretty easy one-stop race, probably leaving that soft tyre away, but if anyone does go for it, it should give them a little advantage off the line.
Let's head to Rosanna, down on the grid.
Yeah, I'm watching Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team, having a photo with lots of fans. Toto, just a quick question. Was this where you're expecting to be this weekend with the upgrades you brought?
Well, a few little technical glitches there. We'll try and get the answer from Toto Wolff in a little bit later. But Mercedes did indeed bring upgrades to the floor, the front wing, the front suspension as well. In fact, talking to Mercedes across the weekend, they said they know with the new wing, they would lose a little bit of time, especially down the straight. And there is an awfully long straight between turn 16 and turn 17 in the final sector of this 5.5 kilometre track. In fact, that straight is over 1.2 kilometres in itself. Losing time there, and again in the run down towards turn 10 and into 11. Wind, Jolien, looks like it's picked up a little bit. Just looking outside the commentary box, the palm trees are blowing on the opposite side of the track. We're based just by the entrance to the pit lane and the final corner. Oh, it's not really a corner, slight right-hand kink that takes you onto that main straight. How much could wind affect the cars today?
It certainly can. It's been difficult for anyone to find consistency over a single lap, trying to put it together in what looks like gustier conditions. Yeah, looking out of the line of palm trees, bit of a headwind coming past us onto the start-finish straight, and that is one of the DRS zones as well, which could provide slightly bigger slipstreaming opportunity. And wind, it is just so sensitive, the wind affecting these highly sensitive Formula One cars. A little bit of a gust here or there can blow the drivers a little bit wide of an apex, spit them into an oversteer, or put them in the wall even.
And talking of overtaking, in yesterday's sprint, it almost gave us a little glimpse as to what's to come. Now, it certainly seems that the field is tight, but overtaking seemed to be so difficult to pull off. The delta you need to have over the car in front seems like it needs to be well over half a second, otherwise you're just going to get stuck in a DRS train.
Yeah, we saw that yesterday with Daniel Ricciardo having a superb run in the sprint to be fourth quickest, and I think that's the opportunity for the Ferraris to get ahead at the start if they possibly can. But I mean, after that is a race on our hands. I quite enjoyed the fact that it was a bit harder to overtake. The drivers were having to work quite hard, think ahead, even with 3 DRS zones and some long straights, it wasn't a complete doddle.
No, as the drivers make their final preparations before they get into their cars and take part in the formation lap. Let's head down the grid a little bit. You mentioned Daniel Ricciardo was a kind of star of the sprint race, but how quickly a day can change. Suddenly in qualifying, on pace was 18th, plus the grid penalty that he received last time out in China puts him plumb last. How can you have a night and day difference like that within a day?
Daniel said he just struggled to find the lap on one set of tyres, which is what he had at the end of Q1, the first part of qualifying yesterday. Made a mistake in didn't feel the grip at the start of the lap, and it just went away from there. And it is difficult for Ricciardo because you have, for 1 minute, he's under pressure. The 1 minute you're having a brilliant drive, he's the star of the weekend so far, and then it all goes wrong at the first part of qualifying, just hours later after he's a hero, banking some points for his RB team. So he's going to have the bit between his teeth and see if he can charge through some of the pack today.
Yeah, well, you would have heard just there how excited the fans are in the grandstands. A lot of them packed out to see this, the third running of the Miami Grand Prix. As drivers being strapped into their cockpits with almost set for the Miami Grand Prix. It will be 57 laps of racing, but before we do that, let's get your latest news with Nick Hatfield.
Listen on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Good evening. The news channel Al Jazeera has gone off air in Israel. Police raided the Jerusalem office of the network to seize equipment after the government decided to shut down its operations. The Qatar-based broadcaster says the aim of the ban is to conceal the truth about the war in Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister is Benjamin Netanyahu.
Al Jazeera reporters harmed Israel's security and incited against IDF soldiers. It is time to remove the Hamas mouthpiece from our country. I thank the Minister of Communication, Shlomo Kari, for his actions on this issue.
Meanwhile, Israel has closed one of the main crossings used to deliver aid to Gaza after the area came under rocket attack from Hamas. 10 missiles were fired at Kerem Shalom, causing Israeli casualties. Hamas says its target was an Israeli army base. The Transport Secretary, Mark Harper, insists the Conservatives are still in the fight despite their losses in the local elections. The former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has told the BBC the Tories face political wipeout if Rishi Sunak doesn't change course. A 10-year-old girl has died and a woman and 3 children have been taken to hospital after a house fire in Bradford. Police say it's not been treated as suspicious. A rival candidate has emerged for leader of the SNP. Graham McCormack, a party activist, is reported to have enough backing to stand against John Swinney. Mr Swinney was expected to run unopposed and take over from Humza Yousaf as Scotland's First Minister. And the actor Bernard Hill, who starred in Titanic and Lord of the Rings, has died aged 79. His breakout role in 1982 was in Boys from the Black Stuff as Yozza Hughes. Hill also features in The Responder, which returns to BBC One tonight. The show's writer Tony Schumacher says working with him was a proud moment.
Out of all the great things that's happened in my career recently, bringing Bernard Hill back to Liverpool to be in a show is just... And he loves this city so much. And when we got in touch, he was like, I'd love to come back to Liverpool.
Bernard Hill, who's died at the age of 79.
BBC Radio 5 Live.
The home of Formula One.
The checkered flag awaits him. Verstappen wins the Chinese Grand Prix.
Yeah, it felt amazing. To achieve basically what we did this weekend is fantastic.
5 races down. Next up, Formula One heads back to America for the first time this year.
The circuit.
Miami International Autodrome.
Tonight from 9.
Listen to live coverage of every lap
on 5 Live
and BBC Sounds.
Hello and welcome back to Miami. This is live coverage of Formula One with myself, Harry Benjamin, former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer, BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, and down in the pits will be Rosanna Tennant. And as you've just heard, this year so far, it's been Verstappen dominance all the way, with the one blip from Australia, where Carlos Sainz took the win due to reliability issues for Max Verstappen. But he starts on pole position for today's Grand Prix, and Jolyon Palmer doesn't look like anyone can stop him.
It's going to be tough, let's be honest. He's winning pretty much everything. 4 times he's not won in the last year and a bit. So the odds are not going to be there for anyone to do it today, but you never know. As walls lining the circuit, 5.5 kilometres, some fast corners, some big braking zones. There is overtaking potential, but it's not super easy. And I think that's not bad news, any of that for Ferrari. Starting second and third, Leclerc had a good start yesterday. If he can nibble up the inside of Verstappen at the first corner, it might just be race on yet.
Well, the sun is certainly shining in the Sunshine City over the Miami International Autodrome, surrounded by palm trees. It's blue skies, but it's quite overcast as well, with white puffy clouds overhead, just on the southeast coastline of Florida, around this temporary street circuit, home of the Miami Dolphins NFL team. Hosted the likes of the Super Bowl here as well, and this the third edition of the Miami Grand Prix. 19 corners, 7 to the right, 12 to the left, around about 5.5 kilometers long, just over 3.3 miles. It is fast. The walls come at you quickly. Where are the best overtaking points, Palmer?
Turn 11 was the main one from yesterday. End of the first long straight in the middle sector. Comes on the end of a triple apex left-hander. It's a long straight DRS, and then a chance to overtake. There's another chance later on, the last corner, really, at turn 17, and then a little chance into turn 1. 3 DRS zones into all of those. It should be possible, but you've got to work for it.
Two different pole sitters in the two editions of the Miami Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc in 2022, Sergio Perez in 2023. But it's been the same winner every time. Max Verstappen has 2 from 2. Could he make it 3 from 3 come the end of 57 laps? We will guide you through all of that coverage in just a few moments' time in what is set to be the 6th round of the Formula One World Championship. The second of the sprint races as well. That's all done and dusted. It's time for the Miami Grand Prix. It's Max Verstappen who starts the Miami Grand Prix from pole position. Alongside him on the front row, the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Behind him, Sainz, Perez, and the McLaren of Lando Norris rounds out the top 5. Piastri, Russell, Hamilton, Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas, and Yuki Tsunoda in the RB round out the top 10. Just missing out was Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin in 11th, ahead of the 2 Alpines of Gasly and Ocon. Alex Albon on the Williams is 14th, in front of Fernando Alonso in the other Aston Martin. Goes from 15th. 16th place is Valtteri Bottas in the Sauber, ahead of the homeboy Logan Sargent, 17th. Kevin Magnussen down in 18th in front of Zhou Guanyu, and a poor qualifying compounded with a 3-place grid penalty sees Daniel Ricciardo start 20th and last. As the cars get set on their formation lap, making their way now, Max Verstappen up through the right-hander of turns 12 towards turn 13. This, the sound of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, weaving left, weaving right, trying to get heat into the tyres. Jolien, what are the drivers doing on this formation lap? What are the main focuses?
Just trying to get the tyres into the right window. Medium tyres for pretty much everyone in the field. Lewis Hamilton from 8th is starting on a new set of hards, so he's got to work even harder as they're weaving, building the speed, building the temperature down towards the final corner. It'll be a little bit harder initially for Hamilton, but he will hope to get reward later on. Further back, Alonso is on a hard, Bottas is soft, Magnussen and Ricciardo right down towards the back of the field on hards. But it's medium tyres for pretty much all the major players, so the strategy should be fairly negated. It should be a straightforward one-stop.
BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, your thoughts ahead of this race?
That inverted tyre strategy, starting on the hard, can work quite well in Miami. It's what Max Verstappen used to win from 9th on the grid last year. It's what George Russell used a couple of years ago to beat Lewis Hamilton. It also helps you because it extends your window for a safety car. So it's an interesting choice from Hamilton in 8th place.
Yeah, and as you say, the only other outlier is Valtteri Bottas, starting with the soft compound tyre. He's down in 16th. Not a lot to lose for the Sauber driver. Interesting though, Yuki Tsunoda in the RB did make the soft tyre go fairly long in the sprint race, so it could well come back around for Bottas. We saw drama going into turn 1 of lap 1 of the sprint yesterday. That saw Lando Norris out of the race, a collision between Stroll and Alonso. Hamilton involved too. Could we see the same thing again, Rosanna Tennant?
Oh, the fans are hoping so. They are fired up. I've just seen the American pop singer Camila Cabello taking her seat in the Mercedes garage. There are so many celebrities here, Harry. I'm not sure there are enough seats to go round.
I'm not sure there's enough margaritas to go around with the amount of celebs you found down on the grid, Rosanna, as they begin to form up on the formation, on the grid. Max Verstappen already lined up in his grid spot, waiting quite a long time as the final cars slot into their place. The back row, Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber, Ricciardo in the RB. On the front row, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, Verstappen on pole in the Red Bull. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Miami. It's a poor start from Leclerc, who plummets down to 4th, Sainz through into 2nd, Perez down the inside, can't get it stopped, nearly takes out his teammate, just avoids him. Verstappen leads through turns 2 and 3. Perez dive-bombing down the inside like no tomorrow. Norris had a good start, so has the other McLaren as well on Piastri, but it was Leclerc who got a poor start off the line.
Piastri's up to 3rd place, really took advantage of Perez losing his mind down the inside, almost wiped out both Ferraris and his teammates. Somehow they all escape unscathed, but he's ended up losing a few places. Verstappen got a great launch, and Leclerc from the other side of the front row went nowhere as the lights went out.
But he's managed to reclaim 2nd place at that first corner, and that move ended up with Sainz dropping down behind the McLaren of Piastri, with Perez now in 5th ahead of Norris and Hamilton.
As it starts to concertina up, coming through turns 11 and 12. Verstappen then with the best of starts, leading from pole position. Leclerc really needed a good start, didn't work out for him as the two Alpines further back in the pack, up through 13 and 14, go side by side. Gasly and Ocon cutting across the curving of the chicanes. It is fierce between the two Alpines, almost contact and wheel-to-wheel action. Now down the long 1.2 kilometre back straight. DRS will be activated next time around. That flap in the rear wing will be able to open to give you 12 kilometres per hour roughly speed advantage, as long as you're within the second of the car in front. The two Alpines absolutely nip and tuck for 13th and 14th at the moment in these early stages, and they're bringing Alex Albon and the Williams into the fight. But up ahead, it's Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz, Perez, their top 5, as Lewis Hamilton goes side by side with Nico Hülkenberg through turns 1 and 2. This the battle over 7th. Hülkenberg winning that one out. Hamilton slots in behind, and Yuki Tsunoda, who made the jump on Hamilton in yesterday's sprint while he was battling with the other Haas of Kevin Magnussen, right on Hamilton's rear wing.
Both Mercedes have lost ground. Hamilton down to 8th, then Hülkenberg with a terrific start in the Haas, getting himself to where he finished the sprint race yesterday. And Russell's down to 10th place. He's lost 3 places on the opening lap. Out front, Verstappen leads from Leclerc, and Piastri gained 3 in the other McLaren, really taking advantage as Perez dived down the inside and almost swiped out everyone else around him.
Verstappen leads by 1.2 seconds. Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz, Perez, the top 5. Norris, Hülkenberg, Hamilton, Tsunoda and George Russell rounds out the top 10. Points down to 10th place. Then it's Stroll, Gasly, Alonso, Ocon, Albon the top 15. Sargent, Magnussen, Joe, Bottas and Daniel Ricciardo still 20th and last as the Sauber and the Haas go toe-to-toe over the chicane. Goes the Sauber across turns 13 and 14. Joe fighting Magnussen.
Gasly makes a place on Fernando Alonso further back as well. Those two Alpines had an amazing scrap side by side through pretty much half the lap on the opening tour. I don't know how they didn't collide or bump one another into the wall on the narrowest part of the circuit, but they're still unscathed. It shows how much it means to them. No points for the team, but they both want to be there to pick up the pieces if things go wrong for those ahead.
The scraps at the back are where it's happening at the moment. Albon just dived down the inside of Esteban Ocon, coming into the left-hander of turn 17, down that long back straight. That the battle over 14th at the moment. Ocon 15th, Sargent behind in 16th. Magnussen has lost his battle with the two Saubers. He's fallen behind them into 19th, and Daniel Ricciardo languishing 20th and last. Lap 3 of 57 here in Miami for the Miami Grand Prix, the 3rd edition of it. It's Verstappen leads Leclerc, but it's Piastri who's within a second of Leclerc at the moment. 2nd and 3rd being fought out between the Ferrari and the McLaren.
Piastri with the fastest lap on lap 2, so he is close. He's half a second back from Charles Leclerc. Now, Leclerc said after yesterday, what are his best chances of beating Verstappen? Number 1, pass him at the start. He hasn't done that. He's dropped away. Number 2, at least stay within a second and keep the DRS of the race-leading Red Bull. He's not done that either. It's 1.6 seconds that Verstappen leads from Leclerc. DRS is available, but Leclerc, with that poor start, he's managed to get back into second place, but he's lost too much ground to Verstappen ahead, so he's going to have to do this the hard way if he wants a victory challenge today. In fact, he has got Piastri homing in on him behind. Second place, Leclerc. Third, Piastri in the Papaya McLaren. As they come through the final corner, Piastri's going to be really tight here, Harry.
And Sainz as well being brought into this fight just behind in the other Ferrari. Perez in the other Red Bull. Further detached, 1.4 seconds. Down the start-finish straight then. Piastri closes up, under braking into the right-hander of turn 1. Can't get close enough to have a look down the inside of Leclerc as he makes his way through 3 and 4. A little twitch on the rear of that Ferrari just unsettles the Monegasque slightly, but he holds that P2 position.
Remember that yesterday in the sprint race, overtaking was quite a lot harder than the teams expected. The overtaking delta, when they came to Miami, that's the lap time difference you need to be able to overtake according to the team's calculations. It's only half a second, but that was wrong. Lots of people got stuck behind Daniel Ricciardo's RB. So can Piastri make a difference here against the Ferrari?
This is the funkiest showing he's had in a few races, Oscar Piastri. He looks like he's up for the fight. DRS open once again as they head down towards turn 11. It's the best overtaking place on the circuit. He's very close behind Charles Leclerc, but as yet not able to shape up for a lunge, just a car length too far back. But he's looking good.
2 8th place finishes in a row for Oscar Piastri, hoping to find himself on the podium come the end of 57 laps. A reminder, McLaren brought huge upgrades this weekend. They're all on Lando Norris's car. He is currently down in 6th, having lost a place at the start. Piastri only has half of the upgrades, but he's closing, pulls out to the left-hand side. We'll have the inside line on Leclerc. Down the straight, makes the move, runs a little bit deep. Leclerc will have the tighter line on the exit. Can he rush back at him? Piastri through and up into second as they come onto the start-finish straight. He dives to that inside line to defend from Leclerc, who will fight back with DRS. Late on the brakes for Leclerc, round the outside, but he can't make it happen. Piastri up into second place. Leclerc third, Sainz fourth.
Leclerc waved him through and was hoping to get the DRS on the way back into turn 1, but he was just a little too far back and couldn't make it even into too much of a fight at turn 1. So it was a pretty limp defence there from Charles Leclerc. Piastri through on the inside, and that is really the work of 4 laps, putting the Monegasque driver under pressure, and finally got a chance, and he took it.
In what was proving to be a little bit of an underwhelming start to a season for Oscar Piastri in his second season with McLaren in comparison to his now experienced teammate Lando Norris. This, one of his best races of the year so far. He's up into second, but he hasn't been able to make a gap yet between Leclerc and Sainz. And in fact, Leclerc is now massively under pressure from his teammate Carlos Sainz behind.
Sainz looks really racy as well. 4th place for him, right underneath the gearbox of his teammate. The 2 Ferraris still there with Piastri. There they go, flashing out of turn 16 all together, but Sainz is the one that's slightly closer. Half a second down on Leclerc. He'll get DRS, but so will his teammate to defend ahead. But Leclerc does not look comfortable in this early stage.
Leclerc on medium, so too is Sainz. They close up under braking. Down through into the left-hander of turn 17, down that long back straight. It's Verstappen who leads by 2.2 seconds. Piastri second, Leclerc third, Sainz fourth, battling ferociously the 2 Ferraris as they come down into turn 1. Sainz has a little think about it, but he's not close enough on that occasion. Perez, the top 5, and we get another look, Jolien, at the start of the race.
Verstappen was angled a long way to the right-hand side. He was ready to cover off Leclerc, but Leclerc just didn't get a good start at all. And then Perez launched in. He was millimetres from nerfing his teammate out of the race lead, all locked up, out of control, and that allowed Leclerc to come back through past Sainz, who was balked, and it allowed Piastri to sneak through as well. Perez steamrollering in on the inside. This is the sound on board the Mexican driver who started 4th, looked to the inside. Oh, and he's just out of control, and his heart will have been through his mouth at that point, just thinking, am I about to plough in and wipe out my teammate, the race leader?
Rule number 1, never take out your teammate. Sainz, this is the sound of that Ferrari. Had a great start, had a great avoidance. And that was Sainz on the radio reporting about Perez.
Yesterday, Fernando Alonso said that Lewis Hamilton charged in like a bull and there was contact four-way contact between him, his teammate Lance Stroll, Norris and Hamilton. Perez was even more like a bull in the Red Bull on that start, and it's cost him more than most, down to 5th place for Sergio Perez.
And we've got a sign on the timing screens that Perez is being investigated, or at least it's noted that he's potentially made a false start there.
Did you see what that was? I didn't see that he was not in his grid spot or something.
I don't know what it was, but they listed a reaction time, which was 0.2 of a second, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense because that's well within the bounds of possibility.
I'm not sure about that. We'll wait and see for a replay.
Yeah, I feel like I have pace here. Can be understood.
Carlos Sainz saying, I feel like I have pace here, assigned to his team to say, please let me in front of my teammate Charles Leclerc. They're currently fighting over 3rd and 4th position. Worth remembering as well that the FIA are taking a look at their full start procedure after Lando Norris got away with a false start. No penalty to his name a couple of races ago. Normally it's just done on sensors alone. If you can avoid not detecting the sensor, they're now going to look at it with more of a wider scope.
It didn't look like he jumped before anyone else, though. That's what Norris did in Jeddah, and Perez was actually rolling in Jeddah and also didn't get a false start. I wonder if he's just started marginally outside of his grid box or something like that. But either way, it's been noted by the FIA, and that will make things just worse for him than that start already was if he gets a penalty.
Lap 7 of 57, Verstappen leads Piastri by 2.5 seconds. Leclerc and Sainz battling over 3rd and 4th. Perez the top 5. Norris is 6th. Hamilton's just got through on Nico Hülkenberg up into 7th. Russell is 9th. Tsunoda rounds out the top 10. Let's head down to Rosanna.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, and actually a few questions for you all. Carlos Sainz yesterday was saying how he was starting on the clean side of the track, and it was the 1s and the 3s that got the better getaway, as we're seeing a replay.
We nearly just had a big crash there.
Yeah, copy, we saw that.
Seeing a replay of Lewis Hamilton and Nico Hülkenberg going wheel to wheel there. Lewis on the inside, Nico going wide. So he's been on the radio on that hard tyre. Lewis Hamilton is against the medium tyre of the Haas driver Nico Hülkenberg. Interesting to see how that hard tyre isn't really getting the job done for him, is it?
He's lost the place again to Hülkenberg, so he was bound to lose a little bit at the start because the hard tyre takes longer to fire up. Then he made the move through on the inside at turn 11, and I think he was talking about Hülkenberg making a slight jink in the braking zone, but it looked okay from what I could see in terms of the stewarding. I don't think they'll get involved with that one, but Hülkenberg has then come back through. The Haas has got good straight line speed, and I imagine he's had a DRS blast on the next run.
Lap 8 of 57. This is the sound on board the 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton closing up onto the back of the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg, who has secured his future. He'll be off to Sauber next year before it becomes Audi, currently keeping the man who goes to Ferrari next year at bay. And we've just had another look at why Hülkenberg got back through. It was coming into turn 17 and a simple lock-up, Jolien, from Hamilton.
And a big one for Hamilton, who's on that hard tyre, and he wants to take that hard tyre a long way into this race. About lap 30 he'll be aiming for at least before he'll switch onto a medium, and his one stop that'll be the opposite of everyone else. He doesn't want to start locking up because you can pick up a flat spot and compromise your performance for that long run. So Hamilton, a mistake letting Hülkenberg back through rather than any sort of sheer pace from the Haas driver. He's going to have to make that move on the German all over again.
Premier League football action as well today. It's full time between Brighton and Aston Villa. 1-0 Brighton over at Chelsea v West Ham. It was 5-0 to Chelsea, and Liverpool versus Tottenham ended up with a 4-2 win for Liverpool. You can keep across all things Premier League on the BBC Sport website and app right now. You're listening to live coverage of the Miami Grand Prix, round 6 of the Formula One World Championship. It's the 3rd visit to Miami. It's Verstappen who leads 2.6 seconds to Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. Leclerc is 3rd, fighting with his teammate Sainz. The two Ferraris 3rd and 4th. Perez the top 5. Then it's Norris, Hülkenberg, who is keeping Lewis Hamilton at bay for 7th, 8th. Then comes Russell in 9th. Tsunoda rounds out the point scorers, finishes point scorers at the moment in 10th. Stroll, Gasly, Alonso, Albon, Ocon the top 15, and they are a long old train.
I think Hamilton's probably got a case of PTSD fighting a Haas like this in the early stages, having battled Magnussen so hard yesterday. Magnussen picked up 35 seconds worth of penalties and 4 incidents trying to keep the 7-time champ at bay. Hülkenberg so far has let him go once. He's close this time. Hamilton to making a move into turn 17. This is the sound on board the Haas. Got Hamilton right in the wheel tracks of Nico Hülkenberg, and Hamilton needs to make it through and then escape because he's now got 6 seconds to make up to Lando Norris.
DRS open for Lewis Hamilton down the start-finish straight, closes up but can't get alongside the German of Nico Hülkenberg in front of him, holds on to 7th. These would be crucial points yet again for a team like Haas, fighting in the lower half of the Constructors' Championship. Their main rivals are RB as it currently stands, with only 7 points between those two teams at the moment, and 1 RB in the points. It's Tsunoda at the moment in 10th, would only pick up a point.
And Nico Hülkenberg in 7th place, Harry, is basically holding up the rest of the entire field. There's a couple of gaps that are in that rest of those 13 cars that are like slightly over a second, but basically it's one long train of cars from 7th right down to 20th.
Yeah, it's Hülkenberg, Hamilton, Russell, Tsunoda, the top 10. But has Hamilton finally unlocked himself from that train down the inside into turn 11, gets the inside line on Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg tries to fight back, can't do it. Hamilton finally gets through as they make their way uphill through the left-right chicane of 14 and 15. Hamilton up into 7th, Hülkenberg 8th, Russell, Tsunoda the top 10.
Hülkenberg still with Hamilton. He's still got his teammate George Russell now tucked underneath his rear wing, accelerating towards turn 17. The Haas has good straight line speed. Russell is so close behind, he might make a move here.
Russell peeks out to the inside, but doesn't feel he's close enough to make a move. Slots back in behind the Haas driver. It's Hamilton in 7th. Hülkenberg now under huge pressure from the other Mercedes of George Russell. Yuki Tsunoda in the RB right behind in 10th. Then it's Stroll, Gasly, Alonso, Albon, Ocon, all right behind as we start another lap. Lap 11 of 57 of the Miami Grand Prix. Here's Hülkenberg's radio.
Some awareness when we're racing would be good.
Nothing like a bit of passive aggression at 200 miles per hour there for Nico Hülkenberg. Must be talking about Lewis Hamilton and some level of indiscretion that Lewis has done back. Hamilton wasn't very happy with Hülkenberg's driving the first time of asking, but this time Hamilton's through, and now he should start to escape the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg. This is the sound on board George Russell heading down towards turn 11. Last lap Hamilton came through. This lap Russell's going to have a chance.
Closing up down the inside, it's a late dart to the inside for George Russell. Hülkenberg holds his line. Russell has to settle behind him for the time being, but Russell is clearly biding his time to make that move on the Haas in front of him. Hülkenberg in 8th, Russell in 9th as they make their way up through the chicane of 14 and 15 and round towards turn 16 and then down that long back straight, which leads us to the final few corners that complete a lap of the Miami Grand Prix. Crucially, Hülkenberg has now just about fallen outside of DRS detection from Hamilton ahead, so he won't get the rear wing flap adjuster. He won't get that 12 km/h boost down the back straight. That allows Russell to close up behind, who will get DRS, but he still can't make a move into turn 17. Down the start-finish straight we go again. Hamilton just in front, lock up though from Nico Hülkenberg going into turn 1, runs a little bit deep, but Russell not close enough to pounce.
Yeah, he just managed to get himself back within DRS range of Lewis Hamilton, but made a mistake at turn 1, and that should allow Hamilton to escape a little more, which will help Russell in turn to pass Hülkenberg and break up that DRS train. Coming through turn 6, long left-hander into 7, slow it down for the tightest part of that 3-part corner at turn 8, and then is a long straight onto the best overtaking chance on the circuit, and Russell's sizing up Hülkenberg for a move here.
Pit stops are also taking place for those in the back half of the field as Russell once again closes up on the inside of Hülkenberg with DRS, dives down the inside through turn 11, has to run deep, keeps all 4 wheels just about on the track. Hülkenberg can't do anything about it. Russell through on Hülkenberg for 8th place. Hülkenberg down to 9th, Tsunoda in 10th. Russell had to wait to make that move, finally gets the job done and will try and chase down his teammate in front.
Nice move from Russell, confident on the brakes, used the absolute maximum of the track width but didn't go over the edge of the track, which would have incurred a potential penalty. So it was a nice clean move from George, and now he can go and chase after Lewis Hamilton and see if they can get anywhere near the faster teams ahead. But Hamilton's not got a huge amount of pace. He was 1 second slower than Norris on the last lap, so even though they've cleared Hülkenberg, Mercedes not yet being able to find the pace that they want.
Now Sorry, Andrew.
Sorry. Meanwhile, at the front, behind Verstappen, as we get another pit stop here with Hülkenberg coming in, followed by Gasly. There's a stalemate between Piastri, Leclerc and Sainz. So Sainz's entreaties on the radio didn't work, and I'm not surprised. But Perez, interestingly, in 5th, is being dropped by them. He's now 2.7 seconds behind Sainz, which is the same margin that Verstappen has over Piastri. And Perez is actually coming under pressure from Lando Norris's McLaren.
Pit stops taking place now for quite a lot of the field. Rosanna, a lot's changing onto the hard compact tyre further back in the pack.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting rid of that medium tyre onto the hard tyre. Lap 13, we were predicting around lap 15, so a little bit earlier than we thought. I've just been having a listen to Max Verstappen's radio. He's complaining about the wind between turns 7 and 8, saying it's not very consistent. So he's been on the phone to his race engineer, Gianpiero Lambiesi, about that. So something for our race leader to be dealing with. I've spoken to Ferrari just to check there wasn't a problem with Charles Leclerc, because earlier that move that Oscar Piastri made on him seemed almost too easy, but they say Leclerc's absolutely fine, which brings me on to DRS. We've seen the DRS train spearheaded by Nico Hülkenberg. Julian, why is DRS so powerful here around this track?
Well, there's long straights and there's 3 chances to use it, and really you need it to try and give yourself the overspeed to make an overtake and come through, because without it, it's very hard. So it's all about getting as close as you can within 1 second of the car ahead, then pushing a button on your steering wheel, getting that overspeed and seeing if you could just have less drag and more top speed to make the move. It's not easy though for anyone to try and make the moves, even with DRS. Sometimes you see drive-by passes, but so far the drivers are still having to work and make it stick in the braking zones, which is nice to see.
Pit stops for Hülkenberg, Gasly for Stroll, Albon, Sargent, Bottas.
We are looking into it.
That was Sainz saying, are we going to try something in front, or being told we're looking into it?
So Sainz is looking to get ahead of his teammate. He wants to do something different on strategy. They have ditched Sergio Perez, who's coming under big pressure now from Norris.
He is. Perez currently in 5th. Norris in a fully upgraded McLaren, trying to sweep round the outside through 11, has to tuck in behind, but Perez goes deep, hugs the apex round the long right-hander. Norris closes up behind. The Red Bull driver is under pressure here, Sergio Perez, up through 14 and 15.
Next up, Formula One heads back to America for the first time this year.
The circuit.
Miami International Autodrome.
Tonight from 9.
Listen to live coverage of every lap
On 5 Live.
and BBC Sounds.
Starting warm up in 3, 2, 1.
Amplify your workout with Pace Setter. Hours of non-stop music to get you pumped. A monthly motivation from McFly's Harry Judd.
Pacesetters, you are smashing it. You are strong and you can do this.
Pace Setter. Listen on BBC Sounds.
BBC Radio 5 Live.
The voice of the UK.
Here we go.
What is happening around the UK?
Listen live, pause, rewind and discover with the BBC Sounds app.
We're sorry, but BBC Radio 5 Live is currently experiencing temporary technical difficulties. We hope to return to normal programming as soon as possible. sorry, but BBC Radio 5 Live is currently experiencing temporary technical difficulties. We hope to return to normal programming as soon as possible. We're sorry, but BBC Radio 5 Live is currently experiencing temporary technical difficulties. We hope to return to normal programming as soon as possible.
Perez, but he can't quite find a way through just yet.
Still right there, glued to the back of the second Red Bull. 5th and 6th. This is the sound of Norris in the second McLaren then. Downshifting, fumbling his way through the tight chicane of 14 and 15. It's a tight left-hander of 16. He has a little touch of the apex curb and now accelerates onto the second DRS zone. And this might be a chance here for Lando Norris. Perez is struggling. I wonder if that flat spot from turn 1 is affecting him in this stint.
The DRS, the drag reduction system, it's a flap on the rear wing that opens when you're within a second of the car in front. Norris has the advantage of opening it. It gives you a 12km/h boost down the straights. Had a look into turn 17. Perez defended, then Perez went into the pits as he slows down to the pit limiter and meets his Red Bull mechanics. Rosanna.
The medium tyres are off, the hards are on. He was in there for such a short amount of time. Sergio Perez back out into the pit lane, and it was a very quick stop for the Red Bull team. 1.9 stop time. Pretty impressive stuff, especially how hot and humid it is here in Miami.
It's an amazing stop from Red Bull. 1.9 seconds is matching the best of the season so far. Great work from the team, but it's earlier than Perez will have wanted to be pitting. He's the first of the top 6 to come in, and now he's down to 10th place and in traffic, crucially. Ocon is through up into 9th, Tsunoda's ahead as well, and Red Bull will be wondering how he was struggling so much in that first stint. Verstappen still leads by 3 seconds. He's not charging away from Piastri or Leclerc either, but Perez was really struggling. Norris has got 5 seconds to catch to join those guys ahead.
And what's interesting actually, Jolene, is that Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc are pretty much nose to tail still, but Carlos Sainz has been dropped a little bit. He's now nearly 2 seconds behind. I don't know whether that's because he's just trying to protect his tyres a little bit before his pit stop, or whether he's really beginning to, whether the tyres have worn out because he's been following 2 cars.
He was fighting hard earlier on, Sainz. He was on the radio as well to his team saying, can we swap the places, I'm going a bit quicker. Now he's falling away, and 2 seconds is separating the 2 Ferraris, 3rd and 4th.
Lap 19 of 57 of the Miami Grand Prix. Verstappen leads by over 3 seconds. It's the McLaren of Oscar Piastri currently cementing second place, but he's got Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari all over the back of him within half a second. Leclerc picking up the fastest lap in the last few laps around, closing down the Australian driver in that McLaren in only his 2nd season in Formula 1. Sainz is 4th, Norris is 5th, having been released once Perez came into the pits. The 2 Mercedes, Hamilton and Russell, 6th and 7th. Tsunoda 8th, Ocon 9th. He has not pitted. None of them have. Sergio Perez, highest of the pit stoppers so far, fed out in 10th place.
Leclerc's got some great pace to be running this close behind Piastri. They charge through up towards turn 11. That was the sound of Max Verstappen, and here are the chasing duo.
So Sainz is the car ahead. We should go after him rather than protect against Perez. Yeah, agreed. I'll go get him.
So that was Lando Norris being told, forget Perez, we're going after Sainz.
So what's interesting here is that one of the problems that Ferrari had last year was over excessive tyre wear. One of the things they've been good at this year is tyre management, because they've made some quite significant changes to their car. So for Leclerc to be 18 laps now, nearly 19, be this close behind Piastri and still be putting him under pressure is indicative of that. Also, as things have gone in the last couple of years, Leclerc's been a bit better at looking after his tyres generally than Carlos Sainz has in the other Ferrari. Maybe that's what we're seeing between the 2 Ferraris here.
into the pits comes Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. He bails out, that releases Carlos Sainz. Leclerc hits the pit limiter, slows down and feeds into his pit box, and the mechanics get to work, Rosanna.
Up on the jacks, nice and fast for Ferrari. Are they as fast as Red Bull, though? It will remain to be seen. Those medium tyres are off Leclerc's Ferrari. The hard tyres on, and it's at 1.9, exactly the same as the Red Bull team. The mechanics are on fire today.
Leclerc feeds out in 6th place, just ahead of George Russell behind.
Now what's going on here is the undercut's very powerful in Miami because of the tyres. So Leclerc is trying to make sure he stays ahead of Perez by stopping there, and it should keep him as well ahead of Sainz, definitely, and he's trying to jump Piastri.
Yeah, it's all about jumping Piastri now for Ferrari and Leclerc. They've pitted him into traffic, and they've got faith that he's going to be able to clear the cars that he's behind once he gets this set of hard tyres fired up. It's Lewis Hamilton, the car ahead of Charles Leclerc. He's come out sandwiched between the two Mercedes in 6th position. Hamilton ahead, Russell just behind. And if he can put the hammer down on this outlap, he'll have a chance to attack Piastri when Piastri's surely's got to cover him off on this lap.
Since being told to chase down Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris has now the fastest lap of this race. It's lap 20 of 57, and a little bit of a slide coming through the turn 14-15 chicane for George Russell in the Mercedes. He tries to hunt down Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc has made that pit stop. Russell has not. Leclerc 6th, Russell 7th. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri trying to hold on to 2nd place. It is all about trying to get the undercut on Piastri for the time being. Sainz is 3rd. They have yet to pit, so too is Norris, again with the fastest lap in 4th.
Piastri stays out. He doesn't cover off Charles Leclerc then. So I think McLaren are just thinking that the game is done. If they try and cover him off, they're going to go longer, and it allows Leclerc through into a net 2nd place. Leclerc is now half a second down on Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton hasn't pitted. Leclerc has. He'll have fresher tyres, and he needs to make this move without losing any time.
Down into turn 1 we go with the RB a little further back, chasing down the Haas in front of it. This is we're seeing Ricciardo versus Magnussen. That's a fight further down the pack. Ricciardo started this race plumb last with a penalty, trying to go for as long as he might. The back runners have all pitted already. The fight, though, is fully focused up at the front. The sound of Charles Leclerc we ride on board with, round the outside of Lewis Hamilton, coming into turn 11. We'll have the inside line through 12, gets the move done on Hamilton. Leclerc up into 5th, Hamilton down to 6th.
Tidy move from Leclerc. Hamilton fancied a fight, covered the middle of the road, but Leclerc, with the fresher tyres, just hammered it late on the brakes and went around the Mercedes, who now will just drift away. There's a bollard that's come off the apex of turn 16 in the road that they have to go around. Don't think there'll have to be a virtual safety car to clear that one off, but something for the race control to have a look at. Here's Verstappen.
I hit that cone in 15 seconds from me.
Understood. So it was the race leader that's hit the bollard and knocked it into the path of, well, it's just off the racing line at the start of the 2nd long straight. Verstappen is radioing, saying, check the front wing. Front wings can hit the barriers and sometimes be okay. It's the apex of the corner before it. He's gone over the right-hander of the chicane at turn 15, carried it in his front wing. It is quite the whack that it's taken, but I think the front wing is intact. The bollard is not. It gets lodged in the front suspension of the Red Bull, and then finally it comes through the whole of the Red Bull and it almost gets stuck in the rear suspension, and then is now lying on the inside on the exit of turn 16, but it's well off the racing line. No, it's not. It's moved towards the racing line. My apologies. It's a different camera angle. That could get collected again from there.
This could be a safety car or a virtual safety car, and that could be bad news for Charles Leclerc because it gives free pit stops to everyone in front of him.
Yeah, Verstappen still leading this race, hasn't pitted, neither has Piastri. They both stayed out, so too did Sainz. Norris as well in 4th. Charles Leclerc, the first of the pit stoppers, currently in 5th. Nothing happening on our timing screens at the moment regarding the cone on the loose on the racing line, exiting turn 16. Rosanna.
We always ask Max Verstappen, don't we? How do you stay focused and concentrated during a Formula One race? And we saw it last year in Canada, didn't we? When he laughed off that moment where he bounced over a curb and he said almost knocked himself out. Here we have our race leader going a little off track and taking out a bollard. It's funny funny stuff. I suppose being out front, maybe the mind wanders slightly, but if they do bring out a virtual or a safety car, this could be absolutely what McLaren and Oscar Piastri want. And here we have it, a VSC, guys.
Confirmed virtual safety car. Russell says the cone has blown onto the racing line. That was his last radio message to the team. Virtual safety car out, Jolyon.
Yeah, I don't think it's because he's not concentrating. He's having to push really hard. And he's got a 3-second gap, Verstappen, out front. The cone has been hit by something, I think, because there's more parts that have come off it. As a Marshall scrambles onto the track and collects 3 different parts of it, and will get safely over the wall again. But a flurry of pit stops will now happen. Anyone that hasn't pitted will come in. But Verstappen, I think he's having to push so hard to just maintain a 3-second gap to Piastri behind.
Why, Jolyon, do cars pit under a virtual safety car, which is already coming to an end?
Because you don't lose so much time. When you're at full racing speed, everyone's going at the maximum speed they can. Cars going 100, 200 miles per hour, and when you're under virtual safety car, it's reduced pace, and that was such a quick VSC that no one at the top end was able to take advantage of it.
No, only Ocon pitted, so too did Alonso, Magnussen as well, and the Haas. So the runners further down did, but the top 4, Verstappen, Piastri, Sainz and Norris, was still coming through the middle sector as the virtual safety car came to an end. But saying that, Max Verstappen has just been told to box. That means come into the pits, and this is the sound of him slowing down to 80 kilometers per hour as he peels in front of his Red Bull garage, Rosanna.
Yeah, lap 24, Max Verstappen coming in to get rid of those mediums onto the hard tyre. We were expecting people to come in between 15 and 21 laps gone, so the medium lasting a little longer for Max Verstappen. But as Jolyon said, maybe it's just difficult out there to find consistency, to work those tyres. The drivers complaining of the grip levels yesterday during qualifying, so maybe not everything going to plan for Max Verstappen and Red Bull. And Oscar Piastri now leading your Miami Grand Prix.
Switches on to that hard compound tyre, does Max Verstappen. Oscar Piastri now leads this race. It's Carlos Sainz is second, Norris in third. Verstappen feeds out in fourth, ahead of Leclerc.
Right, newsflash, Verstappen hasn't got this race sewn up on lap 24 of 57. He's had to pit a little earlier than those behind him. He's been fighting with the car, he's been knocking through the bollards, he cut the chicane, and he only had about a 3.5 second advantage to Oscar Piastri when he pitted, and the McLaren is going longer. If there is now another safety car, Verstappen will lose the lead of the race. He's down to fourth. When everyone else now pits, he will go back into first. But if there's another safety car now, he'll lose the lead, and Piastri will be able to pit and come out ahead of him. And without that, he'll already be having to nurse these hard tyres longer than Piastri and Sainz as well.
So this cost a bit compared to Piastri. We need to push a bit more for these laps.
Yeah, but the race is up right now.
Yeah, copy that.
So Charles Leclerc feels quite content with his tyres right now.
And don't forget about Leclerc. He's only 3.2 seconds back from Verstappen, and he had a really solid first stint as well. The other driver that is flying out there is Lando Norris, who was stuck in behind Sergio Perez for the whole first stint. Perez has pitted. He's down in 8th. He's 2 seconds back from George Russell, and he's behind the 2 Mercedes, still running line astern. Norris, since he's got clear air, has been pumping in fastest lap after fastest lap. The team said, don't worry about Perez, go and get Sainz. He's now only just a couple of seconds back from Sainz, and he is the fastest man on the racetrack.
Piastri currently leads this race after Max Verstappen made his pit stop. Sainz, Norris, Verstappen fed out in fourth, Leclerc the top 5, Hamilton, Perez, Tsunoda, Joe up into 9th as Russell comes in and makes his pit stop. That promotes Ricciardo up into 11th. And the last couple of laps, there has been an absolutely fascinating battle going down in the midfield between the likes of Ocon, Hülkenberg, Alonso and Gasly. It's not over points, but it's certainly over pride for these teams. And if we do get another safety car, that is a 50% chance of one on top of the virtual safety car we've already had. That could change the game for some of the minnow teams in this sport as they ferociously fight for what little points they might be able to snatch away from the top 5 teams. But at the moment, it is Piastri who leads, yet to make his pit stop. We're watching out to see how rapidly Max Verstappen can make his way back up through the field once pit stops take place. And will his race be affected if we get another safety car? This battle further back, Alonso, who started way down the field after a tough qualifying for both Aston Martin drivers, makes his way up into 13th spot in front of Nico Hülkenberg, who is sliding down the order. Gasly in the Alpine next up.
Hulkenberg had a great race yesterday, finished 7th. His teammate was very combative in defence and picked up all those penalties, helping Haas out to get a couple of points. But in today's race, after having a good start, he is just sliding back, and points look like it's going to be difficult for him. Esteban Ocon has made it past Hulkenberg as well. He's up in 11th place, having pitted, and all of these guys will be looking at some points. Russell's pitted and joined the fray as well, but will have fresher tyres to make it through. But with a couple of drivers still in the top 10 yet to pit, Joe and Ricciardo, there might be something up for grabs for Ocon and Alpine.
Approaching halfway distance of this race in a few laps' time. Currently on lap 26 of 57. The battle in the midfield pack continues to unfold. Russell having just made his pit stop, now trying to carve his way through. Here's his teammate.
Impossible to see the curve down the chicane.
So that's Hamilton. It's impossible to see the curb down the chicane. He's referring to the bollard that Verstappen got rid of.
It's very steep uphill coming through 14 to 15. It's just a little crest, but when you're sitting so low in a Formula One car, you've got a high chassis top in front of you. And Hamilton's saying, yeah, he's difficult to actually spot where the track's going. The bollard sticking up was to try and give the drivers a bit of an eye line there. Verstappen's wiped it out, and now they've got to go off. Bit of muscle memory, work a bit harder to get the reference points.
Oh, as an Alpine runs very deep. Gasly fighting with Nico Hulkenberg further back in that pack. That battle still unfolding over 14th and 15th spots. I think Andy Alpine might have been able to get the better of him. No, Hulkenberg's still out in front of Gasly and the Alpine as they make their way down the back straight.
Norris is absolutely rapid in this race. He's half a second a lap quicker than Piastri and Sainz ahead. They come through to start another lap, 27 of 57, and again he's half a second up. So the gap between the top three now is Piastri, Sainz and Norris, none of which have pitted, and the gap between them is 4.5 seconds. Norris is dragging himself very quickly into this fight, which is for second place. It honestly could even be for the race lead in the end. Verstappen's no quicker than Leclerc, and the gap between those two, 4th and 5th, is less than 3 seconds. Verstappen is not running away with this one, guys.
Is this Verstappen just managing his pace, though?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. He didn't have a fantastic first stint. He broke clear in 2 laps. He was a second and a half clear of second place. It was Leclerc at the time. Leclerc was passed by Piastri. The gap was then 2 seconds. And in the 20 laps after that, he only found another second. He was scrappy. He cut through the chicane, not the bollard. I don't think he's picked up any damage there. The team were making an adjustment to the front wing when he came in, but I think that was just because he was going from a medium to a hard tyre. Standard adjustments. He just doesn't look like he's completely hooked up. And he didn't disappear off yesterday either in the sprint.
Hamilton just came into the pits a few moments ago, and now Piastri has come in. So too has Sainz. Rosanna.
Yeah, it was a 2.4 second stop for Lewis Hamilton. Interestingly, getting rid of those hard tyres onto the medium pretty early compared to the 35 laps Pirelli, the tyre manufacturer, thought they would do. Piastri in the pit lane, a 2.6 stop for the McLaren team. Carlos Sainz in the pit lane, a 3.1 stop. Bit slower than what we've seen already during the race, the 1.9 second stop that we saw earlier on. That was pretty impressive stuff, but getting a little slower now in the pit lane.
2.6 seems an age away from 1.9 seconds. It's fine margins in Formula One, but that can prove quite costly for drivers in this race. Piastri feeds out in 4th, behind Charles Leclerc, Sainz in 5th, ahead, both of them, of Perez, who's 6th.
So Norris leads. He's yet to stop. Here's Verstappen in 2nd.
Really low grip. I looked up there again.
Understood. Norris is 3 or 4 tenths quicker per lap, having not stopped, than Verstappen, who has stopped. Verstappen saying his low grip, he's locked up, he's making mistakes. He's got Leclerc now just 2.5 seconds behind him, 2nd and 3rd. Leclerc jumped Piastri, Piastri leaves on new tyres, but he's got to overtake the Ferrari again.
There's a yellow flag in Sector 1 because somebody has found the wall. It's the Haas of, I think it's Kevin Magnussen, but it's also a Williams, and they've come together as well. At the back, it's Sargent, who rear wing has taken a pounding. Magnussen carries on going. Yellow flag out. McLaren out in the pit lane. This is the safety car. This is the chance that Lando Norris needs.
He's just come past the start-finish, but he will get another chance. It's a full safety car. This is a big opportunity now for Lando Norris. It's 11.5 seconds back to Verstappen. That should be okay for Verstappen to keep the lead. The gap is ebbing and flowing. It's going to be tight, but Norris is going to be bang in this fight with fresher tyres in the second half of this race. Sargent is stranded. He's got the rear wing hanging off. The front wing of Magnussen's Haas was dangling as well, which tells you everything you need to know. I think Magnussen surely has gone into the back end of Sargent. This is an opportunity for Lando Norris.
A sad end to the first of 3 American Grand Prix for the American Logan Sargent. The first retirement out of this race. That has brought the safety car out. Perez comes into the pits. So too does Yuki Tsunoda. But is this the chance for Lando Norris, who was into the lead of this race? He hadn't pitted. Max Verstappen, who was the leader, did come into the pits. He's struggling out there with issues with grip and finding it difficult to manage these tyres. Norris will be able to get a much cheaper pit stop. Tell us why that happens under safety car, Jolien.
Because everyone else is going at a low speed. In racing speed, everyone else is pushing flat out. Formula One cars are quick. You lose a lot of time by coming through the pit lane at 80 kph, but when everyone else is going slow, you lose a lot less time. Norris may lead the race once he pits at the end of this lap. The safety car is still out. We're hearing why. There was a collision. Sargent was on the inside. Magnussen was attacking on the outside. They went side by side through turn 2 as well, and then side by side contact more than anything. Magnussen into the right-hand side of Logan Sargent, who's speared backwards into the wall. Norris could lead this race if McLaren do a good pit stop. This could be his golden opportunity to fight for another win.
Okay, Norris is coming into the final sector now. Just on this Sargent Magnussen incident, how did you read that? Is that a racing incident? Because Magnussen could be in trouble here. 4 penalties in yesterday's sprint, was cleared of unsportsmanlike behaviour, but he's in the bad books.
They were side by side coming through turn 2, still side by side coming through turn 3. Sargent could have given him a little bit more space, maybe a 50-50.
Okay, Rosanna, Lando Norris is in.
Race leader in the pits, Lando Norris. The McLaren team set to work, cars up and down nice and quickly. He's going to put on those hard tyres and head back out into the fast lane and rejoin the fray. He is pretty fast. Back out to you guys. 2.1 stop for the McLaren team.
Lando Norris feeds out into the lead of this race. Verstappen 34 seconds back. Jolien.
Norris leads the race. Norris leads the race. He's made a pit stop. He leads the Grand Prix. He's actually come out ahead of the safety car, which has been why Verstappen's been bunched up. And Norris has pitted. He's come out ahead of Verstappen. There are 27 laps remaining. We're under full safety car conditions. No one has to pit again. Norris leads the race. Ahead of Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz, and Perez, who took a second pit stop. What a golden opportunity for Lando Norris, who has been the fastest car on circuit already. This could be the day for a first victory.
Lando Norris currently in the lead of this race, but it is a bit curious why the safety car is in front of the Red Bull of Verstappen and isn't exactly chasing away to get in front of Norris.
How is this going to work, Jolien? Norris is in front of the safety car and he has to catch up to the safety car while the others are held up behind the safety car?
So the safety car will now let Verstappen through, I believe, and wait for Norris to catch the safety car again. The safety car picks up the race leader. That was not Verstappen. So it should have allowed Verstappen through. I think Norris had the gap anyway to be in the lead. The safety car now gets out of the way and the rest of the field will come through. So Norris has 32 seconds to Verstappen. I think he had the pace regardless of that to emerge in the race lead. But Verstappen waiting then behind the safety car has meant that Norris has a half a lap advantage on the rest of the pack. Now the safety car lets them all through and they will all bunch up. Lando's looking in his mirrors thinking, what on earth is going on here? I'm leading the race and there ain't nobody else in it because they're all 30 seconds back. They will now all bunch up behind the safety car. Norris will be the race leader. I'm confident that that would have been the result anyway because of the gap that he had. It should be a 9-second gap that you need under safety car conditions to pit and come back out, and he had more than that. Safety car, no doubt, picking up the wrong driver. Maybe they're so used to picking up Verstappen now, it's just the default.
Yeah, the safety car is letting the cars make their way through. Rosanna.
Interesting one, guys. Remember Lewis Hamilton coming in on lap 27 to get rid of those hards he'd started the race on to go onto the mediums. Lando Norris has just put on the hards on lap 30. There are 27 laps to go. We know that Lewis was struggling with his hard tyres. Have those who pitted earlier and gone from the medium to the hards gone too early? Are they going to need to pit towards the end of this race? Is that hard going to let them down in the latter stages of the race? This is an interesting one.
No, Rosanna, there's no problem getting the hards to the end of the race from here. It was earlier on we were talking to one of the senior engineers in Formula 1. They were saying that the dodgy window for safety cars and switching to the hard tyre to get to the end of the race was around about lap 7. So they're way in the comfort zone here. It's no problem. But what I will say about the safety car is the FIA is not exactly exactly covered itself in glory with the safety car in recent races. They've been delaying putting it out in a couple of races so far, particularly in China last time out, and now they've picked up the wrong car. So, yeah, not great.
The track is now clear, but Norris is still not behind the safety car. He's got to do a full lap. He just emerged ahead of it, and yeah, he's still on his own as well. He's got 13 seconds back to Verstappen, so they're all waiting to catch the safety car, form up and go again. The hard tyres will easily get to the end of the race. That's no problem. They've got less than half distance, so the degradation should be fine. The advantage will be for Norris, who's pitted last and will have a slightly fresher tyre. Leclerc in third position was the first of those front runners to pit. He has a slightly more used tyre and in theory will struggle more for pace at this stage. But the warm-up is going to be the tricky part on the hard tyre, and that's where Hamilton on lap 1 was struggling.
It's lap 31 of 57. We're over halfway distance for the Miami Grand Prix, and it is Lando Norris who leads this race outright. The man from Somerset in a fully upgraded McLaren is in for a chance of his first ever Formula One race victory with less than half a race to go. Max Verstappen has now closed right up behind Norris under safety car, so Bert Mailander in the Mercedes safety car has finally found Norris the leader of this race. Piastri is fourth behind Leclerc, Sainz fifth, Perez sixth, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Russell, Ocon the top 10, Alonso is 11th, Gasly, Albon, Zhou, Ricciardo the top 15, Hülkenberg is 16th ahead of Stroll, Bottas, Magnussen in 19th. The reason for this safety car was an incident between the Haas driver of Kevin Magnussen and the Williams of Logan Sargent. They came together. That has seen Sargent out of this race, and after being investigated, that is Magnussen with a 10-second time penalty. He's getting quite used to receiving those these days. But 19 cars left in this race. It is clear in track sector 3. That is where the incident occurred. They've managed to clear now Sargent's car from on track to behind the barriers, as now the 19 cars remaining in this race, concertina up, weaving left, weaving right, trying to keep the heat into these tyres. Safety car coming to an end. Lando Norris will have the outright lead of this race.
45 seconds worth of penalties now for Magnussen in 50 laps of racing. I think that's a new world record in Formula One. I thought that was I thought it could have been a 50-50. He was side by side through a couple of corners, but obviously the steward's not thinking he was far enough along the inside of Sargent. It's not a conventional overtaking place, but they were side by side already into turn 1. But when you've been up into the stewards the whole time, it's probably the easy move to assume that you're probably in the wrong again, I guess.
Just making their way through turns 14 and 15, approaching that long back straight. The safety car coming to an end. When the lights go out on the top of the safety car, it'll peel away, and then Lando Norris will become the effective leader of this race, setting the pace.
Pressure on Norris now. He is a real talent. He's never won a Grand Prix. He had a big chance in Sochi in 2021. It rained on the last few laps and it fell away from him in a spin. This time it's dry. We're expecting no rain. Norris leads. We're expecting no more pit stops either, but he has Max Verstappen in phenomenal form tucked in right behind him.
15 career podium finishes for Lando Norris, a win yet to be on his list. As the green flag flies, Norris leads this race across the line, but Verstappen goes straight with him down towards turn 1. Norris has to hide that inside line. Verstappen will have to go the long way round. Norris holds his line, manages to get through turns 1 into the left-hander of 2 as it starts to snake through sector 1. Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri signs the top 5.
Oh, it was a nervy restart from Norris. He didn't drop Verstappen at all. He went in quite a predictable place, but he managed to hold firm on the inside, had to defend the first corner and didn't lock up on those hard tyres that are finding a bit of temperature now, sweeping through the triple left-hander. And in fact, Verstappen is going to be the man under pressure now from Charles Leclerc.
The Ferrari driver of Leclerc all over the back of Max Verstappen as they make their way down the run towards turn 11, a prime overtaking spot. DRS will be reactivated next lap around. Leclerc to the inside, has a little look, but not close enough at the end of the straight into turn 11. Meanwhile, Tsunoda battling with Lewis Hamilton quite ferociously over 7th and 8th into 11th as well. Tsunoda winning that battle over the 7-time champ.
Tsunoda benefiting as well from going long and pitting under the safety car the same way as Lando Norris has, and Norris has broken a second clear of Max Verstappen as well. Verstappen was having to watch out for Charles Leclerc. He's struggling a little bit in this Grand Prix, and Norris has broken the DRS range.
Let's also bear in mind there's tyre life differences. At the top here we've got Norris with 6 lap pressure tyres than Verstappen. That's about, what is that, about 3/10, Harry, something like that in terms of advantage. Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, has got 4 lap less fresh tyres than Verstappen, whereas Piastri and Sainz behind him have 7 lap fresher tyres than Leclerc.
Lando Norris with a fully upgraded McLaren straight in the one and only practice session we had this weekend. Showed huge flashes of pace, didn't quite deliver in sprint qualifying. We didn't see what he had in the sprint race. He was taken out in turn 1. An underwhelming qualifying for the Grand Prix, but the way things have evolved with the use of the safety car, Lando Norris has been able to get up into the lead of this race. After safety car has come in, he now has a 1.4-second advantage over the reigning champion Max Verstappen. DRS is now enabled on this lap. That is the drag reduction system, which gives you a boost with the rear wing flap opening when you are within a second of the car in front of you, which Verstappen is currently not within of Norris, but Carlos Sainz certainly is of the other McLaren of Oscar Piastri as they go side by side through turn 11. Sainz has to cut the chicane. Piastri holds the position for the time being. Piastri 4th, Sainz 5th.
Yeah, Sainz just ushered wide from Piastri, the left-hander of 11 there, couldn't make it through. Piastri was good on the brakes and held firm. Norris did the fastest lap of the race on that last lap. The safety car restart on hard tyres. Quite impressive confidence from him as well, under pressure from Verstappen on the restart, but he has gone. He's got 1.4 seconds back to the Dutchman behind him, and that has crucially got him clear of the DRS. And Verstappen still has to worry about Charles Leclerc, just 7/10 behind him.
Yep, Leclerc still well and truly within that DRS zone. This is BBC Radio 5 Live's coverage of the Miami Grand Prix, the 6th round of the Formula One World Championship. Alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, is the former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer, BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, and down in the pits is Rosanna Tennant. Lando Norris in the McLaren leads this Grand Prix. Max Verstappen is 1.5 seconds back. We've recently restarted this race after a safety car period brought out for an incident further back.
Yeah, we are on it.
So that was Sainz. He's not happy that Piastri pushed him wide at turn 11. There was even a little bit of contact between the two running 4th and 5th. I think it was hard, but Piastri probably on the limit of fair there.
This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton, just a replay of getting past Yuki Tsunoda side by side through that really tight and twisty middle sector that takes you through the chicane of 14 and 15. Hamilton now back in front of the Japanese RB driver. Hamilton 7th, Tsunoda 8th. Norris leads 1.5 seconds, the gap between himself and Verstappen. Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz the top 5. Perez, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Russell, Ocon the top 10. Alonso, Gasly, Albon, Joe, Hulkenberg the top 15. The race has not worked out well for the German Haas driver. Ricciardo is 16th, Stroll, Bottas and Magnussen.
Sainz sounds like he's in tears there underneath the helmet in 5th position. Really wants to be a steward himself, telling the engineer what Piastri should do. It was really tough racing side by side in towards turn 11 there, but I think Piastri was aggressive. He was deep on the brakes, but I don't think Sainz had done enough on the way into the corner to expect Piastri to now give him the position back. But it's tough for Sainz, who spent the whole of the sprint yesterday trailing around Daniel Ricciardo in 5th position. Here's his radio again.
Understood, we are working it. Checo 1.0. Checo 1.0 again. Understood. Copy.
Tell McLaren to be telling him, is what Sainz is saying there. That's not going to happen.
Sainz has a lot of ins with his old team, but I'm not sure he's got that much power. This is the sound of Carlos Sainz, though. Can he do it as a move on the track? Moves to the outside, coming into turn 11, but he runs deep. He's not close enough to Piastri, who keeps hold of that 4th position. The Australian in the McLaren 4th, the Spanish Ferrari driver behind in 5th.
He is fired up, though, isn't he? He's passionately trying to negotiate over the team radio with his team to speak to Piastri's team and allow the position. Piastri's not going to give this one up, and I don't think he should, but Sainz is really still attacking. Opens the DRS, takes a tear off, on the long run down towards the final corner. It's another opportunity. He just moves slightly into the mirrors of Piastri. He's getting really, really close at the apex. He is glued to the rear diffuser of Oscar Piastri, and he's going to have another chance into turn 1.
Fastest lap last time around from Lando Norris. So 1:31.1. Here's his teammate.
Oscar, a couple of laps ago, turn 11, when Sainz went off track, it looked like you were ahead at the apex of the corner. Ferrari think you should give the position up, but we do not.
And that's the McLaren side of it.
High-speed negotiations. What does it come to?
The best of them. The gap, though, now increased between Lando Norris, who leads this race, and Max Verstappen to 2 seconds. Last lap around, 3/10, almost 4/10 the difference between Norris and Verstappen. Norris has the pace here. He's going for his first win in Formula One.
He does the fastest first sector of the Grand Prix. He is pulling away, and he was so quick in that first stint after he was unleashed when Perez pitted. He was the fastest man, lap on lap. He went very long on the medium tyre. That's why he benefited from pitting under safety car. Everyone else had pitted already. Norris went long because he was so quick, and now he has the reward. It's a bit of luck. You never know when a safety car is going to come. Sometimes you go long and you don't luck in. This time he's gone long, and he has lucked in a big way. He's gone from fighting for possibly third place, maybe even second, to leading the Grand Prix, and now he is stretching his legs.
The sun continues to beat down on this Miami International Autodrome, host of the 6th round of the Formula One World Championship. The 3rd time we have visited this track in Miami. Kickstarts the first of 3 US Grand Prix this year. We'll visit Austin, Texas later on and finish with Las Vegas later on in the year after that as well. But it's Miami first up, and Norris again across the line finds the fastest lap.
No further investigation, no further investigation. Toggle to 7. Yeah.
And that was Sainz's radio being told no further investigation on the overtaking incident between himself and Piastri. Incredible is Sainz's response. The Spaniard will have to make the move again on track if he wants to take that 4th position away from Piastri.
I can understand the frustration. He was forced wide. There was even a slight bit of contact there. And when you're in the cut and thrust of battle, emotions are high. You don't have the clear perspective of what was going on. And it was on the limit from Piastri. But I agree with the stewards. I think it was just about okay. Piastri was ahead at the apex, and therefore you're allowed to run your rival a little wide.
A little further back behind the battle out front, Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull is also not having a happy race. He's over a second adrift from Sainz in front of him, and Lewis Hamilton, the Mercedes, is all on the back of the Mexican as they make their way down the back straight. Hamilton will get DRS. Here's Sainz on the radio again.
Stay focused, 20 laps to go.
Yeah, leave me alone, Ricky. Leave me alone.
Telling his engineer, Ricky, to leave him alone. 20 laps, he's got to get on with it now. He closes up under braking into turn 17. Hamilton closes up as well onto the back of Perez, neither making a move. Tsunoda, Russell and Esteban Ocon in the Alpine at the moment, holding on to that final points position in 10th. Sainz down the start-finish straight, closes up once again to Piastri, but he can't make the move.
He's quick though. He's tucked so close in behind the McLaren, 4th and 5th. Spent all sprint yesterday tucked in behind Daniel Ricciardo. Spent the first part of this race stuck behind his teammate, then drifted away.
I can't get the car to turn. It's a disaster.
Verstappen, I can't get the car to turn. It's a disaster. The reigning champ is not happy out there. Is it Verstappen exaggerating, or is there actual issues here for the Red Bull driver?
Well, a disaster for Verstappen is to not win a race right now, and that is what's happening as Sainz is going to send another look towards the inside at turn 11. Is laid on the brakes for Piastri, and he holds on. Sainz just putting so much pressure on the young Aussie, but Piastri holding firm for now. Verstappen cannot rotate the car, so he's got understeer. He's struggling with the front end, and then he's just losing little bits of time here or there. It's 4/10 on the last lap to Norris, and for a man that's won all but 4 of the last 30 Grand Prix, seeing the race lead just slowly disappear up the road, it's not a nice feeling for him.
Yeah, Norris is doing to Verstappen what Verstappen normally does to everybody else, isn't he? Now, bear in mind, Sainz is diving down the inside of Piastri, Harry.
Oh, there's almost contact as well as Piastri tries to turn in, but finds the Ferrari in his way. Front wing getting dangerously close to flying off. I think a little bit of carbon fibre did fly off one of those cars. Sainz side by side with Piastri. Sainz with the inside line into turn one. Lock up from Piastri. The McLaren runs deep and off the circuit. Through goes Sainz up into fourth. Piastri down to fifth.
That's a really nice move from Sainz, who finally just had to send it on the brakes. Piastri's been strong on the brakes as well. That's how he defended that contentious move before. He tried to defend again at turn one and flew off the road. Sainz finally has made the move by being so deep, right on the limit of grip, locking the front, sliding on the rear. There was, I think, a tiny little bit of contact as Piastri was trying to cut back on him, but finally Sainz is through. He had to send it. I like to see that sort of racing.
It's still hard-fought racing as well because Perez is in a battle with Piastri too, who falls down the field behind Hamilton as well. So I think there's trouble for Piastri in that McLaren with perhaps contact picked up between himself and Sainz. Sainz now fourth, Perez up to fifth, Hamilton up to sixth. Piastri has slid all the way down to seventh place in this race and now has the RB of Yuki Tsunoda closing in on him as well. Lap 40 of 57 of the Miami Grand Prix. Here is Piastri.
We see front wing damage. So we think we should box and replace the front wing.
The top element of the front wing, I think, has come away, and that will explain why he's suddenly dropping off. He did also have a big lock-up at turn one, missing a bit of front downforce, so as they all fly past our commentary position, Piastri does not. He peels into the right-hand side. Sainz radios that the car's okay, Piastri's is not.
That promotes Tsunoda, Russell and Ocon along with Alonso up into the points. Alonso was expecting a tough old race this afternoon, started down in 15th at the moment, is looking at a point to his name, rounding out that top 10. Then it's Gasly in 11th, Albon 12th, Hülkenberg 13th. Albon actually just behind Hülkenberg now. Fierce fight going on between 12th, 13th and 14th with Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber 14th in front of Daniel Ricciardo in the RB, who is down in 15th spot. Then comes Stroll, Bottas and Magnussen, the 19 runners still left in this race. Logan Sargent, the one and only retirement.
That was a replay there, the sound you could hear of the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz down the inside of Oscar Piastri. Laid on the brakes. It was actually quite a thud, the right rear of Sainz into the left-hand side of the front wing of Piastri. Ended up putting a crack in that front wing and Piastri's had to pit. Late move from Sainz, had a late lock of the rear brakes as well, had to correct and slid slightly wide into the McLaren. Tough, but they had it on the other way around about 5 laps previous.
That 41 of 57 getting into the closing stages of this Miami Grand Prix. Norris leads, here's Sainz.
Something is wrong with the car, take it down. Okay, understood.
So that was Sainz, having just said the car is all okay, now feeling that something is wrong. He's currently in fourth. Just had a little bit of contact with Piastri, who had to come into the pits for a front wing change.
And now he's dropping away from the top three, having had good pace tucked in the McLaren. Now he's got clear air, and he's 7/10 down on Leclerc, who's upping his own pace, still 2 seconds back from Verstappen. Norris does the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, now 3.5 seconds clear of Verstappen, and Sainz, having felt that bit of contact, is not sure about his own car. He's got Sergio Perez attacking now, 1.5 seconds back, and then it's Hamilton.
Got any power, give it to me.
That's Hamilton asking for more power. He's 7/10 behind Sergio Perez. Hamilton can smell 5th place here and 10 points, which would be massive for a team like Mercedes in this current season, who find themselves down on pace, down on power. Hamilton asking for everything that team have got in his hunt down of a struggling Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull.
Yeah, having a much better race today. Mercedes didn't have a huge amount of pace in the first stint, pitted, now he's on the medium tyre, and the second stint he's going much better. He's already come past Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda still holding George Russell behind. He's 2 seconds back from Lewis Hamilton, who is the car we're on board with now, heading down towards turn 17. Tsunoda's 2 seconds back, he's got Russell 2 seconds behind him. Hamilton, though, is within DRS range of Sergio Perez, who is having the most mediocre of afternoons in Miami here, and is dropping still further back from Sainz, who's dropping away from the top three. Perez with no pace after having that lock up at turn one, almost bulldozering off his teammate. He's just never looked like challenging.
15 laps to go. Let's just bring you up to speed with what's happening elsewhere in the field. As Sainz is told that they think the car is okay, having had a bit of a skirmish with Oscar Piastri. As you say, the bottom end of the top 10 is Russell. Ocon in the Alpine looking at taking 2 points for that French team, which would be absolutely brilliant for them. Categorically started off this season as the worst team on pure performance, finally hitting the minimum weight, bringing upgrades from China onwards. 9th place for Ocon would be massive. Then it's Alonso, Gasly the top 11, Hülkenberg, Albon, Joe, Ricciardo, Stroll, all embroiled in a massive battle just outside of the points. No points up for grabs, but it is all about pride for those drivers. Then it's Bottas, who's a little further adrift, 1.5 seconds back for the Sauber driver, ahead of Kevin Magnussen, who's now under investigation for failing to serve the time penalty correctly that he received. He got given a 10-second time penalty for his incident with Logan Sargent, which saw the American Williams driver out of this race. And Piastri, having had contact with Carlos Sainz, had to come into the pits for a front wing change, now lies down in 19th, but did just set the fastest lap. However, it's his teammate Lando Norris who leads this race. 3.8 seconds between himself and Max Verstappen.
And he's 0.4 quicker than Verstappen on the last lap. Every lap, Norris is growing that lead, little bit by little bit. Never won a Formula One race. He's a real prodigious talent. He's shown it so many times, particularly in the wet, sometimes in the dry. He's been punching above his weight. He has more podiums in Formula One without a Grand Prix win than anyone else ever. But this could be the day where he can break that and finally get that Grand Prix victory.
For McLaren as well, 1 Grand Prix win in the last 12 years. And that came courtesy of Daniel Ricciardo back in Monza in 2021, with Norris right behind him on the podium on that occasion. It wasn't the flowers for Norris that time. Could it be come the end of 57 laps here in Miami?
So a couple of races ago, McLaren said, we think we could challenge for victories this year. And this was a couple of races ago, before Norris finished second in Shanghai last time out, where they were struggling to get on the podium. They just about managed it in Melbourne without the Red Bull of Verstappen in the fight, without Perez being on form either, as Zhou has a bit of a send down the inside of Alex Albon, doesn't make it stick at turn 11, but still loads of scrapping further down in the field. McLaren said, we think we can fight for victories. And it felt like a bit of a lofty aim for a team that's got drivers that neither of which have won a Grand Prix. And McLaren haven't won a Grand Prix since Daniel Ricciardo in Monza in 21, and for a long time before that haven't won a Grand Prix. But it said their intentions. They knew they had upgrades coming. This is the first race that they've put the upgrades on the car. They've put it all on Norris's car. Half of the upgrades went on Piastri's car. He had half the upgrades of his teammate. They didn't have enough for both cars to get the full package. Norris didn't deliver as much as we thought in qualifying, but in race pace, yes, he's lucked in with the safety car, but he's been the fastest driver as well.
Lap 45 of 57, and the battles further up the field have kind of settled for the time being. The fiercest battle at the moment is going on for, well, it's 15th and 16th, and Lance Stroll and the Aston Martin has just been able to get through on the RB of Daniel Ricciardo into turn 1. Ricciardo, who had an absolutely stunning sprint race yesterday, managed to finish 4th and keep a Ferrari of Carlos Sainz behind him for the entirety of the race. Had a tough qualifying for the Grand Prix, compounded with a 3-place grid penalty carried over from China a couple of weeks ago. Started last, has clawed his way at the moment up to 16th. Meanwhile, his teammate Yuki Tsunoda looking to bag some crucial points for the RB team up in 7th at the moment. It's been a bit of a switch around for RB and Haas during this race. They're embroiled in a great battle for 5th and 6th in the Constructors' Championship. In the lower half of the field, Hülkenberg had the advantage early doors, but this race hasn't worked out for the German at the moment. He's down in 12th and stuck in a bit of a train behind Gasly and Alonso, looking at that final point, which Alonso currently occupies. Up in front, though, it's Norris now, 4.5 seconds, and that gap is growing between himself and Verstappen.
Half a second again on the last lap. He is just in the zone right now. Lando Norris sweeping through the first sector, through the right, left of turn 4 and 5, into the triple left of 6, 7 and 8, and he's just extending that advantage lap on lap. 5 seconds now to Verstappen, 2 seconds then from Verstappen to Leclerc, then 3.5 seconds from Leclerc to Carlos Sainz, who looks like he is okay, as his team suggested on the team radio. No damage for him in that contact with Oscar Piastri, and he's just extending his advantage on Perez behind.
What do you think is going through Lando Norris's head right now? That 46 of 57 has nearly 5 seconds in front of Max Verstappen, looking at his first Grand Prix victory.
He'll know that this is the chance for him to break his duck. He will know it. You don't want to think about it, you don't want to dwell on it, because you just then tense up and feel the pressure, but you cannot avoid thinking about it. There's no cars ahead of him. He's got the clear track. He's stretching away from Max Verstappen, and he knows he's 12 laps away from a first Grand Prix win. And in this position, just think it's a practice session. Do your best laps. Just don't think about anything else than hitting your break points, taking an apex, do your best laps, lap on lap. That's exactly what he's doing. As soon as you start getting distracted, you start dwelling on too much outside of the exact moment that he's in right now, you start to make a sloppy mistake, and then you start to feel the pressure. He's in a very fast car today. He's got better tyre life than those behind him, and he's got better pace. He's just got to keep it simple and keep doing what he does best.
Well, Lando Norris is currently leading the Miami Grand Prix. We're getting into the closing stages of this race. Max Verstappen 5 seconds behind. Leclerc, Sainz, Perez the top 5. Hamilton, Tsunoda, Russell, Ocon and Alonso the top 10. And they are your points scorers. It's been a big day of sport on BBC Radio 5 Live in the Premier League today. Full time at 3 games today. Brighton against Aston Villa. That ended 1-0 to Brighton. Chelsea versus West Ham ending with a Chelsea win 5-0, and Liverpool versus Tottenham full-time 4-2 to Liverpool. Also, after us on BBC Radio 5 Live, you can get all the latest and the biggest news stories with Stephen Nolan from 11 o'clock, with less than 10 laps to go here in Miami as the sun beats down in the Sunshine City. It's Lando Norris who is staring down the barrel of his first Grand Prix victory. The fights are going on further back in the pack. Ocon and Alonso, the former teammates at Alpine. Ocon still in the Alpine, battling ferociously with Alonso in the Aston Martin over 9th and 10th. Ocon winning out just about, but the wily old fox of Alonso all over the Frenchman's rear wing as they come down the back straight. Alonso will get the benefit of the DRS.
He's had such a mediocre weekend, Alonso and Aston Martin. Lance Stroll 15th, and he's been embroiled in battles further back as well. Ocon defends the inside. Alonso in the quicker car goes to the outside. He's not going to make it through at turn 17, but he should be able to have a good run. Gets it tightened and straightened and onto the gas, coming now through turns 18 and 19 flat out. He'll get the DRS again, and he should be able to get the job done.
Down towards turn 1, Ocon on the inside in the Alpine, has to run a little bit deep. It's a tighter line through for Fernando Alonso, who closes up through turn 2, then 3, and it starts to snake through sector 1. The Aston Martin driver having to hold firm behind the Alpine for the time being. Alonso, who had a tough qualified behind his teammate Lance Stroll, who is now behind him in this race. Stroll down in 14th, keeping Joe and Ricciardo at bay. And we do tend to see, especially in that middle pack, at this Grand Prix, DRS trains developing where everybody is within a second of the car in front of them. So that 12 km/h extra boost that you get with that drag reduction system kind of becomes a bit negated. But for Fernando Alonso, into turn 11, dives down the inside, darts across in front of Ocon, finally makes the move work. Alonso up into 9th, Ocon down to 10th, but it will still be a crucial point for Alpine if he can hold on to it. Hülkenberg in the Haas, though, is closing in 1.8 seconds behind.
Hülkenberg, who started in the top 10, is now staring at the point again. He had a great start, got up to 7th, drifted back to the fringe of the top 10, took an early pit stop. It didn't work out, and he's had to fight his way back up now to get to 11th place, staring at the back of Esteban Ocon. Alpine haven't scored a point this year. They've had major changes in the technical team. The technical director's left. The head of aerodynamics left as well when this car turned out to be right at the back of the field in Bahrain, the first race of the season. They bought some upgrades. They got a chance to score a point, but Ocon's going to have to work for it to the end of the race.
110 Grand Prix starts for McLaren. That's what Lando Norris has registered today. Ties with Lewis Hamilton's total with the team. And could this be the day that Norris celebrates the ultimate win for him with an upgraded McLaren. In qualifying, underwhelmed, but so far with the help of a safety car, things have gone the McLaren man's way. 5.5 seconds now between himself and Max Verstappen. The entirety of the McLaren garage, the pit wall with team principal Andrea Stella trying to keep cool, calm and collected, but you know inside that they are right on the edge.
Yeah, there are some sweaty brows in the McLaren garage right now. 8 laps from Lando Norris clinching a first Formula One Grand Prix victory. He's now 5.5 seconds clear of Verstappen. Once again, he's 0.4 quicker than the Dutchman on the last lap. Leclerc's within 2 seconds of Verstappen. Really, that's the fight to the end of this race. Norris should be able to coax it home at this pace, but you could just never afford to take your eye off the ball. I had a race in Formula 2 at Silverstone. I was winning the race, home crowd, and I made a pit stop. It was a 1 pit stop race, a bit like this one. Made a pit stop, not many laps to go. The pit stop was good. I was on an out lap, and I was like, here we go. This is going to be a wild celebration. Me at my home race. Who am I going to thank in the press conference? Came around the next lap, and someone had jumped me. Mitch Evans had jumped me in the pit, and I couldn't believe it. I'd had a lapse of concentration, and it absolutely did me. You've got to stay focused the whole way through, even if you think you've got it in the bag. That's the moral of the story.
Well, who are you going to thank in the press conference?
I was going to thank my family, my friends, everyone that had brought me to that moment in time to achieve such an immense result. And in the end, I just criticised them because they cost me. If I had no family and friends around, then wouldn't have thought about thanking people, would have won the race.
Oh, and Mitch Evans.
They all
what on
came,
earth
they
did he
were
go
all
off
there.
today? Terrible. Lap 50 of 57. Norris leads 5.7 seconds to Verstappen. He's got the pace over the Dutchman. Leclerc third, Sainz fourth. The Ferrari settling down there. One of the closest battles at the moment is really between Perez and Hamilton. Perez in fifth, 7/10 at the moment between himself and Lewis Hamilton, closing in through DRS down the back straight. Tsunoda a little bit on his own in seventh. Russell a further 5 seconds back from him. Alonso is ninth. Ocon the top 10, and they are your point scorers. Hulkenberg is 11th. Gasly, Albon, Stroll, Zhou the top 15. Ricciardo, Piastri, Bottas and Magnussen, the 19 drivers left in this race, with only one retirement, which unfortunately came for the home driver, Logan Sargent in the Williams, out of this race after being punted into the wall by Kevin Magnussen, who received a penalty of 10 seconds, notched up quite a few so far this weekend. It was a swimmingly good race for Oscar Piastri as well, early doors in the other McLaren, but in a ferocious battle with the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, ending with front wing damage for Piastri. He had to come into the pits and has now plummeted. Well, initially it was down to 19th. He's picked off Magnussen. He's just picked off Valtteri Bottas, got himself up into 17th, and is now fighting with Daniel Ricciardo, who's had a bit of a lonely race as well, currently in 16th spot.
Almost could get back to the points, Piastri, with the pace he's running, but he needs to be making very, very clear, incisive passes, and Ricciardo's just held him off down at turn 1. Here's his radio, Piastri.
Oscar, reminder, Lando is leading the race. We do not want to cause a safety car here.
So McLaren, when you're winning the race as a team, they're all nervous. They know what's at stake. The team to win a race right now is huge. They've not done it for a few years. And Norris has never won a race. And they're seeing Piastri, who's down in 17th, go wheel to wheel with his countryman Daniel Ricciardo for 16th position. They're just thinking, do not end in tears. That was at the same part when Magnussen hit Sargent earlier on to bring out the safety car that changed this race. They don't want Piastri, who is now really on a hiding to nothing, to try and put a move for 16th place and change the course at the end of this race.
Moves happening further back in the pack still between Albon, Stroll, Zhou, all battling over 13th, 14th and 15th, along with Ricciardo and Piastri being brought into that fight as well. Stroll with DRS side by side with Albon into turn 1. Albon forces him off the road, but Stroll holds firm and the Canadian makes that move stick. Aston Martin 13th with Stroll, and in that battle I think Albon lost out to Zhou Guanyu as well in the Sauber, who makes hay while the sun shines, up into 14th for the Chinese driver. Albon down to 15th, then comes the RB of Daniel Ricciardo in 16th and Oscar Piastri in 17th with that fastest lap. But he won't get the point for it. You only get that if you finish within the top 10 come the end of the race.
I don't think McLaren will mind about that right now, with their other driver leading and on course for victory. Albin's been holding back a big gaggle of cars. He's now got the RB of Daniel Ricciardo right with him with the DRS open down towards turn 11. Ricciardo has a think about going to the inside, but cannot make it through just yet. There's such a gaggle of cars, none of which are going to take a point out of this one, but they're having a very fun fight.
Certainly is. Scrapping it out in that mid-pack. That's really where the closest spots are. Hamilton is still on the back of Perez within a second, but isn't quite able to have the advantage in outright pace to get through on Perez, even with the aid of the drag reduction system. That battle for 5th and 6th continuing on. The two Ferraris, a couple of seconds between them as well. The gap now over 6 seconds between Norris and Verstappen. Lap 53 of 57. And for Norris, this must feel like the longest laps of his career right now.
He just wants to just tick them off. You start thinking that is any sort of noise, is anything going to go wrong with the car at this stage? He's got 6.5 seconds back to Verstappen. He's done everything right. He is ticking the boxes of how to be a Grand Prix winner right now. Now you're just thinking, please, no one else crash behind. There's a melee. It's all kicking off for 14th position. None of these guys are going to score points. Zhou, Albon, Ricciardo, Piastri, Bottas, Magnussen, all in a big DRS train, scrambling around for minor places. They're not going to score points, but if they end up in the wall, it can change the outcome of the race. And that's the sort of thing that Norris may well see on the big screens as he's driving around a lonely race out front. He just think, please guys, keep it clean. And secondly, please, his McLaren car hold out as Albon screeches in a big smoky mess into the runoff area at turn 11.
Goes straight on, manages to get it halted in time before the wall approaches. He should be able to spin himself back onto the track, but Albon locking up and clearing out of that gaggle. Plumb last as he was fighting with the RB of Daniel Ricciardo. Just behind them is the other McLaren of Oscar Piastri, having been told to not try anything too risky. The last thing they want is a safety car. Big front left lockup for Albon in the Williams.
Yeah, he was defending from Ricciardo on the inside of the road and just locked up everything there. Just too late, too aggressive on the brakes, and that's him to the back of the field and more miserable times for Williams. And Alpine are still looking like they can nick a point here. Esteban Ocon in 10th position. Has Hulkenberg 1.7 seconds back. Only a couple of teams haven't scored a point yet so far this season. Williams, Sauber and Alpine haven't. Alpine homing in on their first point.
Yeah, Alpine's best finish so far this year has been 11th in what has been one of the worst starts for the Enstone-based team. Lots of technical changes coming the way of the Alpine Formula One team as they look to try and rebuild and claw themselves back up the competitive order. Currently only, actually no, they are plumb last behind Sauber and Williams with 0 points to their name. If Ocon can get that 1 point, Alpine will jump both Sauber and the Williams team up into 8th in the Constructors. So it might not be for much, but for a team at the back of the Constructors pack, that point is literally worth millions of dollars, even in these early stages of the Formula One season, in what is the longest season in Formula One, where we thought Max Verstappen would probably win every single race. He didn't win in Australia after an issue with the car, saw him having to retire. That led Carlos Sainz to take the Grand Prix victory then, but it was usual service resumed after that, with Verstappen back on the top step. And for all intents and purposes so far this weekend, it's been a sprint weekend, the second of 6 sprints scheduled for this year. And even despite openly struggling with grip, with overall pace and consistency within his Red Bull, Max Verstappen, well, he put it on pole for the sprint, he won the sprint, and then he put it on pole for today's Grand Prix as well. But it hasn't quite worked out for the Dutchman, not only with the intervention of the safety car, but also just doesn't have the pace matched to Norris.
The crowd are on their feet applauding as Norris comes through turn 11 and turn 12 through the stadium section around the fake marina of Miami. He's got just over 2 laps to go now, Lando Norris. The crowd wanted to see a fight. In fact, they've not really seen that because Norris came from further back, pitted under safety car and just emerged in the lead. They've not seen the fight, but they may well see a different winner in 2024.
Piastri has just picked off his compatriot Daniel Ricciardo for 15th spot in a very careful move down the inside at turn 17, not trying too much, and Ricciardo giving Piastri all the space he needs as well, leaving the track and gaining an advantage for Stroll and Alex Albon in their escapades further down the pack. The 13th place is going to be investigated by the stewards, so a little bit of work for them to do there. But Norris now just keeps on extending that gap. 7.3 seconds between himself and Verstappen. Leclerc and Sainz stabilise the two Ferraris in third and fourth. Perez rounds out the top five. Hamilton was close to him, but has now fallen back to 1.5 seconds behind the Mexican. Tsunoda looking good in seventh. Russell, Alonso, and Ocon the top 10 as the McLaren fans in the grandstand cheering ferociously for the man that has yet to take a Formula One victory on course to do so.
They're all lining the track at turn 12. They're on the outside there. It's full of papaya, and they are loving to see Lando in the lead of the race with 1 lap and 1 corner to go. He accelerates up towards 200 miles per hour, will hit the left pedal, the brake pedal, with a huge amount of force and slow his car down to about 50 miles per hour through the apex of the final corner. And now he gets on the gas again, sweeps it through the left, sweeps it through the right, the final corner, turn 19, and begins his final lap of the Grand Prix.
The final lap of the Miami Grand Prix, perhaps the biggest lap of Lando Norris's career. The entirety of the McLaren garage almost up on their feet, shaking, biting fingernails. They are just holding out hope that 1 lap, just over 5.5 kilometres, is all that Lando Norris needs to manage in order to take his first Grand Prix victory. 15 career podiums to his name, but none of them have been that top step. Could it be today? Verstappen is second, hasn't been able to match the pace. Leclerc third, rounds out the podium. Sainz is fourth, Perez the top 5, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Russell, Alonso, Ocon the top 10. Then comes Hülkenberg just outside the points in 11th. Gasly is 12th, Stroll, Joe, Piastri the top 15, Ricciardo, Bottas, Magnussen and Albon, 19 of the 20 drivers, with only Logan Sargent retiring.
Keep it smooth, keep it calm now for Norris, who's come through turn 16. Now it's just the long run over a little crest, accelerating 1.2 kilometres to the final corner at turn 17. He's just got to keep it smooth. He's got 1 more corner to go.
Down that long back straight, which will feel like an absolute age for Lando Norris, the 24-year-old from Somerset, who has yet to take a victory, rounds the final few corners. 57 laps, Lando Norris is a Grand Prix winner in Formula One. He wins the Miami Grand Prix. 15 career podiums to his name, none of them with a top step. He puts that right today. Lando Norris wins the Miami Grand Prix. McLaren cannot believe it. They are up on their feet. Zach Brown is cheering. The team owner, along with team principal Andrea Stella, smiles all throughout the grandstands, packed full of papaya. Max Verstappen started this race on pole, but didn't have the pace to match Lando Norris. He pulls up alongside Norris, gives him a well-earned wave and a round of applause. So do all the drivers. Leclerc and Sainz follow suit. But McLaren back on the top step of the podium since 2021, and it's with Lando Norris, a Formula One winner at last.
Pats on the back, all smiles, Zach Brown cheering on the pit wall, and it is so deserved for both team and driver. Lando signed a new deal in the winter, putting all his faith for the future in McLaren. And finally, as a partnership, they're on the top step. Lando as a driver is on the top step. He's side by side on the slowdown lap with Lewis Hamilton, who's applauding him as well. It's been a fine drive and a superb run of form this weekend for McLaren. He was so quick yesterday. They've had the pace with the upgrades. And today, through 57 laps, maybe he was a little bit lucky with the safety car, but he was just the fastest car in the field.
Lando Norris, the emotion he must be feeling. We'll hope to hear from him soon. He's waving to the crowd. Here he is.
You've done it, mate. You've done it. White H11, position 12. White H11, position 12. Oh, I love you all. I love you all. Thank you so much. We did it, Will! We did it!
Will Joseph, his engineer. We did it, Will. Lando Norris did it. 57 laps. He started down in 5th. He wins. The entirety of the crowd that surround this Miami Grand Prix track are up on their feet, whether they're wearing Papaya McLaren merch or not, and applauding what is an amazing feat, an amazing drive from Lando Norris.
I wonder how much is elation and how much is relief for Norris at finally winning as well. He's had all those podiums, he's had all that praise. We've all seen for such a long time the level of talent that he has. But finally, when he has a chance to win, he's been able to deliver it. A consummate performance today. So strong.
I guess that's how it's done. Finally. Oh, I'm so happy. I knew it, huh? I knew it when I came into this morning. I said, today is a day full of opportunities. And I nailed it. You nailed it. Thank you so much.
Norris nailed it, McLaren nailed it. They take the win for the Miami Grand Prix. They pip Max Verstappen and Red Bull. And as you say, Jolene, it must be relief because there were questions surrounding Norris. Could he ever win a Grand Prix? He was taking the records.
Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. This one's for my grandma. Thank you very much.
And the thank yous there for Norris as he pulls up into that P1 spot for the very first time. But there were questions around Norris. Could he ever win? Was he going to be always the nearly man, never able to do it? Well, he's put all those answers to bed now.
And unlike me, he's thought about doing the thank yous now rather than with a few laps to go in the race. He clambers out of the car. This is a popular win for Lando Norris. It's been a while coming, but it was surely inevitable. And finally, it has been realised. Huge cheers. Norris salutes the crowd. What a moment.
Let's head to Rosanna, who's with Zach Brown.
Zach, congratulations. What a moment for the team. What a moment for Lando as well. How are you all feeling?
Pretty awesome. That was an unbelievable drive by Lando. Team's done a fantastic job. That was a fast race car. Pretty awesome. We're gonna.
Of course, he had
the moment.
He had that full upgrade package. Has that made the difference this weekend? Can we expect more of this now?
Well, let's not get carried away. It's just race win number one, but I hope so.
Big celebrations. Toto Wolff coming out of the garage, guys, to congratulate Zach Brown. Hugs all around, even when your competitors here.
Rosanna there with one of the first to speak to the CEO of McLaren, Zach Brown. Norris out of the car, Charles Leclerc straight over to congratulate his friend and rival. Leclerc finished third on the podium, Verstappen behind as Norris is also greeted by the president of the FIA, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Fernando Alonso walks over to Lando Norris. At one point, it was Norris serving the tea to Fernando Alonso back in Alonso's second McLaren days, and now he comes over to congratulate the T-boy done good.
The good of the great of the field have been congratulating him. He's taking his helmet off now, and again fist pumps now towards the crowd. Red Bull mechanics coming over and say well done. It's a popular win for Lando, and as Zach said, don't get carried away. This is just the first win. They got big hopes.
Listen to that. You can hear the crowd screaming Lando as he goes over to congratulate one of his best friends on the grid. Carlos Sainz makes his way over to Lando Norris. Andrew Benson, BBC F1 correspondent. What are your thoughts on a miraculous day for Lando Norris and McLaren?
Well, it was a superb drive, and I agree with Jolene. It was inevitable that he was going to win in one day. Anyone who was questioning whether Lando Norris was a potential Grand Prix winner didn't know what they were looking at. He's a fantastic driver. He did a great race in China just 2 weeks ago to finish second. Okay, he was helped by the safety car, but as Jolene said, he was the fastest driver in the fastest car on the day. I think what's interesting is if we think back to last year, when Red Bull struggled, it was quite often on street circuits, had a low grip track surface. Think of Singapore, even Monaco, he didn't have the advantage that he expected. This is a similar kind of track. They were obviously not quite happy with the car. Verstappen's been complaining in every press conference all weekend, and this is a result.
It is a result. Rosanna, what is it like down in Parc Fermé?
Oh, this is a special moment, Harry. He's got his first win in Formula One. Lando Norris walked over towards his team. He put his helmet and the hands device down on the floor and then ran and jumped into the arms of his mechanics that did him up, and he crowd surfed over the top of them. Cheers all around. He's now hugging his mechanics. And a nice little touch from Fernando Alonso, the two-time world champion driving for Aston Martin, came over and congratulated Zak Brown. That was what he did first. I think everybody on the grid really thrilled for Lando Norris to get this. He's now being embraced by Andrea Stella, the team principal, and as you can hear, a lot of cheering and clapping going on down here. This is a really, really special moment in Lando Norris's career.
Oh, what a result as well for team principal Andrea Stella, taking that win with McLaren 2 with Lando Norris. George Russell comes over to celebrate with his compatriot, the British driver, making his way now, picks up his helmet, and it's his old teammate Daniel Ricciardo who comes across to give Norris a hug. I don't think there will be a single person up and down the grid who won't be happy for Lando Norris.
When was the last time you saw a Grand Prix win where half the field has made their way over specifically to go and congratulate him straight after? Everyone knows how much this means to Lando.
Well, we'll soon hear what he has to say after taking his first victory as he finally makes his way over to place his helmet down. Max Verstappen waiting very casually for the man that pipped him to the win. It was Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc the podium, Sainz, Perez the top 5. Hamilton, Tsunoda bagging some good points in 7th in front of Russell, Alonso and Ocon did manage to finally get a point on the board for the Alpine F1 team, rounding out the top 10. Hülkenberg was 11th, Gasly, Piastri, Zhou, Ricciardo, the top 15, Bottas, Stroll, Magnussen and Albon, the 19 drivers that finished this race, with the only driver to retire, sadly, being Logan Sargent, the American racer. Well, as the Parc Fermé protocols get taken, let's hear from the 2009 world champ Jenson Button talking to the latest Formula One race winner, Lando Norris.
Lando Norris, how does it feel to be an F1 Grand Prix winner?
Oh, wow. About time, huh? Fuck, sorry. What a race, yeah, it's been a long time coming, but finally I've managed to do it, so I'm so happy for my whole team. I finally delivered for them, and yeah, long day, tough race, but finally on top, so I'm over the moon.
It wasn't the most straightforward race for you, starting 5th, going back to 6th, and then having to fight your way through. Obviously, a little bit of luck with the safety car, but the pace was dominant at the end.
Yeah.
It was really dominant. You must be proud.
I am. I mean, the whole weekend's been good, you know. I've just had some little setbacks along the way, but I knew on Friday we had the pace, and just a couple of mistakes here and there. But today we managed to put it together. We put the perfect strategy. It all paid off. So thanks to McLaren and everyone. And I have to give a shout out to my mum and dad, of course.
Oh, amazing. Do you have a message for this team that obviously you've stuck by for a couple of years now? You've built together. You've grown into a race winner with McLaren.
What do I say to them, huh? I'm just proud, really. I mean, a lot of people, I guess, doubted me along the way. I've made a lot of mistakes over my last 5 years, my short career, but today we put it all together. So this is all for the team. I stuck with McLaren because I could believe in them, and I did believe in them, and today proved exactly that.
We'll go and savor every moment. This is a memory that you will have forever.
It is indeed. Thank you so much, mate.
Max. So Max, P2, this is the first time you've been beaten on track for over 20 races now. How does it feel?
I mean, you win, you lose. I mean, I think we're all used to that in racing, right? But yeah, today was just a bit tricky. I think already on the mediums, it didn't feel, fantastic. We were pulling away, but not like it should be. And then once we made the pit stop, and I heard what the lap times the McLarens are doing, I was like, wow, that's pretty quick. So yeah, once they then also switched on to the hard tire, they just had more pace, and especially Lando, he was flying. Yeah, it was incredibly difficult for us on that stint, but if a bad day is P2, I take it, right? And I'm very happy for Lando. It's been a long time coming. and it's not going to be his last one. So yeah, he definitely deserves it today.
So what was wrong with the balance? It sounded like you were struggling with understeer, getting the car to pivot, to turn.
Yeah, I mean, understeer, oversteer, just very low grip on 4 wheels, and yeah, that's something that we have to understand.
Does this feel like it's a true pace from these guys? That these guys are going to be able to
I hope not.
challenge you from here on, or do you think it's a circuit dependent?
Yeah, I mean, they came with an upgrade. Yeah, for sure, it looks like it works, right? So we have a bit of work to do from our side. I think definitely it wasn't our strongest weekend in terms of race pace, but we'll analyze it all and we'll try to come back stronger from it.
Bad result, P2, not too bad. Well done, Max. Charles. So that was a very up and down race, almost the incident at the start with Checo coming flying past. How did you see that?
Well, it was very tricky. Obviously, Checo was on my inside. I didn't have a great start. As soon as I left the clutch, I had a wheel spin. I saw Checo on the right, but there was very little grip, so he locked up. And I thought we would crash, but fortunately for everybody, we all got out that first corner without any damage. Then it was all about trying to focus on ourselves, but today we're again missing a little bit of pace. But we did our best. Obviously, we have been unlucky with the safety car. The timing of the safety car wasn't great for us. Then we ended up having the oldest tires of all the guys at the front. But we managed everything quite well. So P3 was the best we could do, and we should be satisfied with that.
Yeah, normally when you're a couple of seconds off of Max, it's not a bad result, right? But when you've got a McLaren that far with Lando in front, it's a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm really happy for Lando. He deserves it. Very often he arrived very close to it, but for one reason or another, he didn't make it. But today he did an incredible job, and the whole weekend he has been on it. And already in Q2, I think there was a lap where I was like, okay, they are very, very strong. And we were expecting them to be strong. Maybe not as strong as what they've shown today, but he fully deserves it. And now it's up to us to hopefully bring the upgrades very quickly and catch up.
Well, from a very difficult start on Friday FP1 to a podium, it's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Cool.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Jenson Button, the 2009 Formula One World Champ, speaking to the top 3 after 57 laps of the Miami Grand Prix, which was ultimately won by Britain's Lando Norris for McLaren in front of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. They now make their way into their buggies. In the case of Norris, it's a nice pink buggy where he'll be driven with Andrea Stella to the podium, and equally so too will Verstappen and Leclerc in their own buggies as they make their way up. We'll be digesting all of this over the next 15 minutes or so ahead of Stephen Nolan coming up from 11 o'clock on BBC Radio 5 Live with the main news stories. But Jolyon Palmer, the biggest news story as far as we're concerned right now is Lando Norris, a race winner in Formula One. Is this going to unlock Norris now as a contender regularly with Verstappen and Red Bull? What went wrong for Verstappen and Red Bull today?
Well, Max said it. He was just struggling a little bit with the balance. And the whole way through the weekend, he's not been particularly hooked up. He has had pole. He's won the sprint. He's topped everything until just now, but only by a little bit. He was bemused at taking pole on Friday for the sprint qualifying. She said lol on the radio when he was told that he was on pole position. He couldn't believe anyone else didn't beat him. The same yesterday, wasn't chuffed with his lap, but still was on pole. Finally, a rival has put it all together, and he's been beaten. Without Norris, Verstappen would still have won, and he would have been pushed all the way, but it would have been a sort of typical Verstappen performance. Norris did get fortunate with the safety car. Ironically, I'd have been interested to see what happened without that safety car, because the strategy was heading his direction anyway. He'd gone long on the tyres. It was opening up. He had clear air. He had great speed. He would have had a very solid run to the flag anyway with a late pit stop. I don't think he'd have beaten Verstappen without the safety car's intervention, but I think he could have had a really combative drive towards a strong podium, having run 6th in the first stint. This was an element of luck, but also it was delivered with pure pace as well and consistency from the driver.
Well, he was just over 10 seconds ahead of Verstappen when the safety car came out, and he beat him by nearly 8 seconds. So the pit stop would have cost him about 20, so he'd have been 10 seconds behind when he came out. So yes, he probably wouldn't have beaten him, but he would have been quicker and behind him. So with the two cars together, oh no, the safety car wouldn't have happened. But so he probably wouldn't have made it. But I think what's interesting about this is there's an upgrade on this McLaren. They were saying at the start of the weekend that it wasn't as big as the big one that they made in Austria last year, which by my reckoning was worth about a second a lap. But it wasn't that far off. Now, obviously a second a lap is a lot for an upgrade, but Red Bull have had an off day. But this could change McLaren's season. They could vault Ferrari. They could even threaten Red Bull on a semi-regular basis. I don't think he's going to beat Verstappen to the World Championship, but it's going to be really interesting to see what effect this McLaren upgrade has on their performance over the next few races.
If we just run the numbers then, so 10 seconds he was behind Verstappen. A pit stop is about 17 seconds in Miami. It's not a huge loss, so he'd be 7 seconds back without a safety car. The thing is, though, he'd have then been behind Leclerc, he'd have been behind Piastri and right with Sainz. So he would have had to go a little bit longer. I don't think he would have done it because he'd had to do too much overtaking. But it would have been interesting to see play out regardless.
Let's have a listen to the cool-down room. Norris and Verstappen have arrived. Let's see if we can hear anything. All smiles for the time being and recovering.
I was like, 2 in a row, I'm out. Oh my god. Oh!
That was the reaction to Perez diving down the inside into turn 1, nearly taking out his teammate. That seems so long ago now, but that could have been Verstappen out of this race and not even through turn 1. And reflecting on the Bollard incident as well for Verstappen, which brought out the virtual safety car midway through this race in Miami, and then ultimately the safety car, which transformed Lando Norris's race win hopes as a result of Logan Sargent and Kevin Magnussen coming together. Magnussen receiving a penalty, Sargent out of this race. Sadly, the only retirement in the field for Logan Sargent. And
was that you, Lando?
We're just having a look.
No, I think it was Oscar, no?
At the top 3 in the cool-down room.
Well, that way. But what tyres do you start on? Medium.
And they're talking about tyres now and strategy, but Norris then needing to have a sit down. I think he worked hard for that one.
I tell you what, this is going to be a day where virtually everyone in Formula 1 is happy. You know, Lando, it's always nice to have a first-time winner. Lando Norris is a very popular driver. Everybody recognises his ability. He's good friends, as you could hear in that cool-down room, with Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc and a bunch of the other drivers, George Russell, for example, as well. They all respect him. And, you know, it's also, McLaren is also a feel-good story. They've been coming back up for the last couple of years. So it's all good in Formula 1 today. And let's face it, we're all getting a bit bored of the Verstappen domination. So anything that breaks that up, that's got to be good news.
I mean, who'd have thought it? 2 races this season where Max Verstappen has not taken the win. But this time it was Sainz in Australia, and now in Miami it's Lando Norris. We're just awaiting the podium ceremony to take place. After that race, so this is how the point standings look. Verstappen still on top, 136 points to his name. Perez in second with 101, then it's Leclerc, Sainz, and Norris now just a couple of points behind Carlos Sainz in the top 5. And over in the constructors, no massive changes at the front end of the order. Red Bull on top with 237 points. Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Aston Martin the top 5. RB ahead of Haas, and Alpine jump up to 8th with Ocon's 10th place finish. Crucial for them to now get ahead of Williams and Sauber. But the podium ceremony then getting underway. Charles Leclerc in the special edition all blue liveried Ferrari outfits getting onto the podium. Max Verstappen in second, and the biggest cheer of them all for Lando Norris, who straight away celebrates with the team. Andrea Stella, the team principal, makes his way out onto the podium as well to receive the Constructors' Trophy. And then, well, it's time to hear the winning national anthem. It's the British national anthem.
God Save the King blaring out around the Hard Rock Stadium for Lando Norris and the McLaren team. Just one anthem, because of course the McLaren team are based in Woking in the United Kingdom. Well, guys, Laura, how do we reflect on that one? Lando Norris taking his first ever win in Formula One as he raises the trophy up, throws it up, and thankfully catches it to the delight of his McLaren team ahead of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. What will Lando Norris be feeling? What does it feel like to stand on top of a podium, Jolien, in any championship?
Oh, it's special. It's winning is just what everyone's here for. Whether Norris has taken 110 races to do it, other drivers can do it a little bit sooner. Lando's had to work so hard. He's had so many podiums, but this is why anyone's here. You've got to get yourself into a car capable of winning and then deliver it. And then you stand on the top step, hear your national anthem being played out, British team, British driver, and all the team below cheering, and it's happy faces for so many people working at Woking for McLaren. And it's just the culmination of so much hard work that puts in the hours and gives this sort of result.
Andrea Stella, the team principal, being given the Constructors' Trophy. He kissed it. He has had such an impact on this team, don't you think, Harry? It's been really remarkable how he's gone about his business, taking this team back to the top.
Yeah, we're seeing an increase really in those who've historically held more technical roles within Formula One teams, stepping up to that team principal role. Andrea Stella kind of leading the charge on that, having been with Ferrari for many years, and then McLaren in a technical role, now overseeing the general day-to-day running of that team. Stella is, in my opinion, probably quite... well, not anymore, but he was a bit of an underrated team principal. He has been transforming this team. Last year, they were right on the back foot, one of the slowest teams at the head of the season, and he owned up to that fact, said they were behind targets. Then they brought in that upgrade in Austria last year, and it transformed the team. And they've been on an upward trajectory since then. So as great as this is for Lando Norris, he did the job in the car, but he has got a brilliant team around him. McLaren on the up, and good timing too with 2026 looming. McLaren going to be ones to watch.
So are they the biggest challenger to Red Bull? I know Lando Norris is on the top step of the podium today, but we were all saying Ferrari were. So Jolien, has this shifted things around for you?
I mean, it's the upgrades that have transformed Norris's chances right now. Ferrari are doing a good job as well. Leclerc kept Verstappen on his toes regardless, and I hope that we're going to get more races with Ferrari challenging Red Bull and McLaren. Who knows where they can be? Remember, this was a sprint race. They've only had 1 hour of practice to get this car into a good setup window with all these upgrades. A few more fine-tuning practice sessions in the next weekends, they could be a consistent threat.
Well, what a turn of fortune for Lando Norris, spinning out of the sprint race yesterday, but he's on the top step of the podium this afternoon in Miami. Have you enjoyed your weekend here, guys, Harry and Jolien?
I'm exhausted. Don't know about you, Palmer. I've loved the sun, but that race, I mean, what the cherry on the cake.
And it's always nice to have a new winner in Formula One, isn't it?
It certainly is. Lando Norris, your winner in Miami. Up next is Stephen Nolan. But first, let's check in with the latest headlines. Your BBC News is coming up next, and then it'll be Stephen Nolan.
The voice of the UK. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
BBC News at 11 o'clock. This is Andrew Peach. In the last hour, a potential contender for the SNP leadership, the party activist Graham McCormack, has announced he won't join the contest and will instead support the only currently declared candidate, John Swinney. Earlier, Mr Swinney said it would be better for the party if it focused on rebuilding itself. Candidates have until midday tomorrow to declare their intention to stand in the election to select Humza Yousaf's successor. The former Home Secretary Suella Braverman has urged Rishi Sunak to own the Conservative Party's poor results in local and mayoral elections in England. She says the party needs to change course if it wants to win the next general election. Ministers insist Mr Sunak's plan is working. The former Tory Special Advisor, Chris White, thinks Mrs Braverman is wrong.
Those on the right of the party look at the projections of the Reform Party and the number of votes that they won and think you should tack to the right, whereas Andy Street, who's more on the moderate wing of the Conservative Party, thinks that the party is best when it's moderate, inclusive and tolerant. If you look at where the Conservatives performed best in the mayoral and local elections, it was where there was a strong brand, a strong independence, a strong sense of being moderate, inclusive and tolerant.
A man in his 20s has been treated in hospital after a serious assault in a car park in County Antrim, in which his hands were nailed to a fence. The police say he suffered potentially life-changing injuries. They're appealing for witnesses to the incident in the village of Bushmills early this morning. Local councillor Richard Stewart says the community is shocked.
It was a brutal and horrific assault that hasn't been seen before recently, and the whole community is in deep shock just at the brutality of the assault. This is not wanted in the village, it's not wanted in North Antrim, and it's certainly not wanted in Northern Ireland. This is a thing of the past.
A woman's been arrested on suspicion of neglect after a 5-month-old boy suffered a cardiac arrest at Legoland in Windsor on Thursday. The baby is in a critical condition in hospital. The 27-year-old woman from Witham in Essex was detained on Friday. The band The Fizz, whose members were part of the Eurovision-winning act Bucks Fizz, have announced the singer Mike Nolan is to leave later this year. Jay Ashton and Cheryl Baker will continue with the group. Mike Nolan broke the news here on Radio 2.
This is personal, but I don't know. I have decided to leave. I've been thinking about it for a long, long time, and I just thought this is the time to do it. I might as well just leave. It's 43 years that we've been together.
Mike Nolan leaving the Fizz after all this time. In the last few minutes, the British Formula One racing driver Lando Norris has won his first Grand Prix. The 24-year-old McLaren driver beat Red Bull's Max Verstappen, the current championship leader, in Miami. Charles Leclerc came third for Ferrari. And that's the BBC News at 3 minutes past 11.
BBC Radio 5 Live.
The voice of the UK.
Every morning, Rick and I wake up with you on 5 Live Breakfast.
Good morning.
Hello.
We have let Rachel loose in the newsroom, so Rachel is roaming with a microphone.
We're in this fairly modern building, so once you come in through the rotating glass doors and into the main hall area...
Sounding a bit like an estate agent.
Yeah.
Past the age of 18, you shouldn't celebrate your own birthday.
No.
It's embarrassing, grow up.
Really?
Yeah.
All that and a whole lot more.
5 Live Breakfast with Rachel Burden and Rick Edwards.
Listen weekdays from 6
on 5 Live and BBC Sounds.
Stephen Nolan on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Good evening. Welcome to the Nolan Show. Later we'll bring you the latest on the Israel-Gaza peace talks. But first, is it time for the Prime Minister to call a general election? The former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, says there's no time to get rid of the Prime Minister now.
I despair at